Of the week, prior to the Great White Death, Bill Michaels Show on the air. Boy, we got a whole bunch of stuff to get to today. Sad news overnight coming out that just on the cusp of the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, something that is being celebrated on the NFL Network, and they're doing a football life. The football life is just now coming out about Franco Harris. He passes away at the age of 72. And man, it just could not believe it. Played from 1972 through 1984. 12 of those 13 seasons he played with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, was a hell of a running back, but just in the sense of a moment in time, he was the recipient of the Immaculate Reception, and something that is, still, lauded today as we talk about football history. So very, very sad news in Franco Harris's passing. You know what? Well, one thing we didn't mention yesterday, Gary Knaufel also passed away, former Green Bay Packer from years gone by, also longtime PA voice of Lambeau Field. He passed away the other day too, and they had a moment of silence for him in the press box at the game on Monday night. So, and I knew Gary. I got to meet Gary and talk to Gary and get to know him a little bit when I first got here in 1999. And I didn't even know. I knew he was getting up there in years. I didn't know he was approaching 90, but he did, and ended up passing away. So Gary had passed away as well. I was remiss in not mentioning that yesterday on the program, nor during the Green and Gold postgame show. So my apologies. But yeah, Gary passed away as well. So kind of sad there. But I'll tell you this, man, what a what a day to wake up and hear that. And then the Carlos Correa deal. I was stunned when I saw this deal. And it comes out that it's, 12 years, 315 or something like that, $1 million. And the New York Mets, and I went and looked, depending on where some of these teams fall, the New York Mets total payroll will be $380+ million. Think about that for a minute. $380+ million. That will be their luxury tax, just the money they have to pay back to baseball for going over the, quote, luxury tax. Their luxury tax payout will be more, just the payout will be more than maybe 10 to 12 other Major League Baseball teams' total payroll. Just their luxury tax. If baseball doesn't see there's a problem in this, I don't know what else to say. That is more, their luxury payout will be about 40-something million dollars more than the Brewers' total payroll. It's mind-boggling, isn't it? And look, if I'm a Mets fan waking up today, I'm like, hell yeah, man, we got one of the richest owners in baseball, and he's spending the money, putting his money where his mouth is. That's, but as a small market, the smaller markets, it's like, what the hell? How you can't compete? I mean, literally, you can't compete with that. You just cannot do it. And I know we've been down this road before, but there is, I don't know how baseball as a sport can sustain itself based upon its current economic status. Now, it has to equate to wins and losses. I understand that. But when you talk about betterment of team, I don't know how a team like the Brewers, a team like the Royals, a team like the Reds, a team like the Rockies, you start to get into some of these other mid to lower level teams. Pittsburgh. I don't know how they survive. I don't know how they can compete for the long term in Major League Baseball. They're just basically there. You're like the Appalachian states of the world playing the bigger teams for a payday. That's all it is. That's all it is. That's like just crazy money. 12 years, $315 million. That's just crazy money. And the players, because people are saying, well, the players will never agree to a cap. No, they won't. And here's the reason why, because the owners will never open their books fully. And the owners can lock out the players and say, look, we need something reasonable here. We need something reasonable. We need, we got to have more than what we're getting. And the one thing that the owners didn't ever want to agree to is a floor. They want a cap, but they don't want a floor, and they don't want to open their books, and they don't want to show the amount of money they're making. And the owners are as greedy as the players are. And greed, for the most part, coming out of the movie Wall Street, greed is good. Because if you have that greed and that want and that desire, it drives you to be better. But when you don't have the ability to compete, and ultimately in the fans' minds, the perception becomes reality that simply there is a large group of teams that start off the season with a little bit of hope, and then money trumps everything, then that hope fades. And I don't understand why they can't come to an agreement and see this. And like I said, the Players Association never wants to agree to it. They don't want to agree to anything because they want their players, the more money their players make, the more money that goes into the union, the more money that goes into the union, the more money the union heads make, the more money that's then passed around, and it raises salary, and high tide raises all ships. I get it. But at some point, you're going to be looking around with all the money going, what happened to our sport? I mean, it's already bad enough that you're having to tinker with the rules because people don't want to watch it. You have become boring. You have become passé to many. So you got to, instead of just playing the game, you got to screw with the rules. So to a younger generation, okay, if something doesn't work, change it. Instead of saying if something doesn't work, figure out why it's not working. You don't just change everything. You don't change the innate way the game is played because fans are yawning. There's a problem there. And instead of recognizing the problem, baseball just buries its head. You got an absolute positive horse's ass as a commissioner running the game who doesn't care. He cares only because of his own paycheck and because the owners care. But beyond that, he's not a baseball historian by any stretch of the imagination. He's an unapologetic jag. Never liked Rob Manfred. Never. But it's disappointing. It's great if you're a Mets fan. Don't get me wrong. And if you're a big market team and you're going for things like this, and it's wonderful, and you really don't care, then my screaming into the wilderness is falling on deaf ears, and I understand that. But you eventually have to listen. Go back to when George Halas, Papa Bear Halas, down in Chicago, major city, big money, right? Early on in the days of football, looked at the franchises and said, you know what? We need Green Bay. We can't let them fold. Here's $100,000, which was huge money back in those days. Here's $100,000. Make sure that team stays viable. We need the underdogs. We need the small markets. We need things to be shared. And the Packers stayed viable. And now today, the way it stands, the NFL understands the necessity of the large market and the small market. They understand the necessity of the underdog against the giant. They understand the necessity of revenue share, of salary caps, of salary floors. They understand all of that. They understand the value of the draft. They understand it all. And that's the reason the NFL reigns supreme, because you have got a jumble of teams right now in the NFL, a jumble of teams that, while a few have been eliminated, no doubt about it, a few have been eliminated. But when you look at it, you still have divisions that are still fighting for the top spot, divisions that are still fighting for postseason awareness. You have got right now in the NFL per side, probably 12 to 13 teams maybe per side that are still with hope with only 3 weeks to go in the season. 3 weeks to go in the season, and you've got all of these teams that are still looking for hope and tiebreakers, and we're trying to figure it out. And if you win and this team wins, and this is what it's all about. This is the reason the NFL reigns supreme. Baseball, July. These lesser teams, they're gone, man. They're gone. What are they playing for? What are the fans going out to see? Unless you're a compassionate fan of baseball, an avid, rabid fan of baseball, and the game itself, the sport itself, what are you going to see? Maybe a superstar, maybe a pitching matchup. Maybe you just want to spend a little day in the sun. But for the most part, what are you going to see? Not much. Baseball is innately flawed, and there is nobody inside the sport that can see it. You know why? Because all they see is green. And that's a disappointing thing about Major League Baseball. And that's the reason baseball continues to founder. And they don't get it. They want to tinker with shifts and all that kind of stuff. And the game is so boring and so slow and replay. And it's just, there's so many simple solutions, and they just don't want to do it because they don't want to upset each other. Meanwhile, fans are going, to hell with you. You don't get it. You're dumb. Go be rich. Talk to you later. There's other things to do in the summertime. Oh, by the way, I can go outside. I can ride a bike. I can go play golf. I can sit on my boat. I can sit at the beach. I'll sit outside. I'll spray myself with water laying in the sun on the roof of some apartment complex somewhere. I'd rather do any of that than go watch a boring ass rich bunch of dudes play baseball, because it just doesn't matter. And it's so in with. It's just love the sport of baseball. Absolutely, positively love it. And they don't get it. So anyway, that's my opening rant of the day. And I apologize, but it's just one of those things that I saw and I thought, you got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me. 877-867-1670. If you want to hit us up, do it. You can find us over on Twitter at Bill_Michaels, at Bill_Michaels. Producing the program, Ben Kenny, at Ben Z Kenny over on Twitter, bringing him in. Ben, how you doing today?
I'm good. It's cold. It's cold.
I'm not a fan of the cold. I will agree. I know I don't necessarily live in a state that is conducive to my attitude regarding the cold, but I love it here, so that's the reason I tolerate it. But I agree with you. Once it gets down, like today's going to be in the mid-20s. Once it all, warms up and everything. And today's nice. Not a lot of wind. I was out and about this morning, and had a couple places to run, and I went to Quick Trip and everything, and did my thing. And it was like, this isn't so bad. And by the way, remember yesterday, weren't we talking about like 17 inches of snow?
Yeah, it is. Dropped significantly.
Yeah, what the hell?
The weather. They were wrong.
I don't want to come down on the forecasters because I did not pay attention to the forecast over the last 24, 48 hours. I just knew something was coming. But I had people yesterday when I was talking about snowfall saying, well, they said it's going to be. And I'm like, well, who? They said it was going to be anywhere from 10 to 17 inches of snow. And today I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I got to prepare, man. I got to make sure that, Paul Terry Designs, I got to make sure that the guys are coming over to plow my driveway. I got to make sure I've got the shovel. I got to get the shovel out. So I'm up this morning. I'm doing all this stuff. And I thought, flip on the news because I want to get the latest update. What time is this going to hit? And I see the winter weather advisory. Okay. And then I see the, whatever the hell it is, the winter storm advisory. Okay. And I'm like, wow, how much are we getting? 4 inches? Well, the wind's going to be bad. Whoa, wait.
Sounds like a normal Tuesday.
4 inches? 4.5, maybe 8, depending on how far north you go. Wait, what? Where the hell did 17 come from? Now, I'm not going to be rude completely here, but if I don't know where that anywhere from 8 to 17 was predicted, unless they were talking about something drastically north or something like that. But I'm just going to give you a quick example. Something we can all relate to. Guys, girls, here you go, okay? Ben, if you walk into a bar, here we go. If you walk into a bar and you meet the girl of your dreams, she is just like the ceiling opens up and God's lights come down. And there she is. She's She looks beautiful. She's got a nice skirt on, pair of high heels. She's completely dressed, just looks pristine and perfect. One of the most beautiful visions you've ever seen in your life. Hair long, silky, eyes are gorgeous. She's got perfect skin, and she looks at you and likes you. And your eyes meet, and Ben Z. Kenny runs across the bar, and you begin to talk to her. And she's enthralled with you. And then you start to brag a little bit. You start to talk about yourself, tell her a few stories, a few things. You guys are hitting it off. And if you look at her and say, sweetheart, I've got 17 inches. And then you get home and there's 4. Don't tell me she ain't leaving your ass. How can you be that wrong? How can you be that wrong? That's embarrassing.
Certainly, if you have a huge package.
Damn straight. More of the Bill Michaels Show next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Continue on, and we are glad you're with us today. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. I don't know if there were many people that knew that where I was going with that quick analogy, that story there. So I apologize to Tim, who texted me, my buddy Tim, listening to the program. He said, I just spit coffee all over my dashboard. He said, that was hilarious. So my apologies. I didn't mean to. I guess I should tell you to, to not be drinking anything when I'm getting into one of these long-winded stories. So,
Bill, I think my only official statement on that story is no comment.
Right? That's one thing you got to prove eventually. That's the same thing with forecasters. It's like you got to prove it. You can't.
Well, forecasters, there's no consequences when they get it wrong, though.
Right.
It's a little different.
Right. I know of a place. I'm not going to say specific, but I know of a place that used to, during certain events, would turn up the sensitivity on their radar. So you'd be looking at certain television stations, you'd be like, oh, here comes the rain. And then they were the ones that said, look at what's coming. And it went from a red and a yellow to a yellow and a green because it would turn up the sensitivity. So everybody would watch them. Here it comes, and finally other stations had caught on to it. And one of the other stations' motto was be prepared, not scared, because that's what they tried to do. They, most news directors will tell you can win with weather. During a weather event, everybody watches the weather. Now that we have it on our phones, you can kind of pay attention to it a little bit more, but you really do rely upon a lot of the forecasters. And there's some really good ones in the area that I appreciate. Drew Burgoyne from CBS 58 and Mark Baden. And I watch, other television stations around the state. I pay attention to them on Twitter. But there was one that was known for turning up the sensitivity on the radar to get people freaked out. And if you were getting a little rain event, it became a pretty heavy rain event. If you were getting a heavy rain event, it became a storm. And if you were getting a storm, it was tornadoes. They would twist it up so much that it became, it was almost embarrassing, to be honest with you, because it was so obvious. But that's what they do, man. Some of them do that, and they do it to scare you, so you tune in every minute of every day to pay attention to what's about to come and destroy your world, because they're going to be the ones to tell you, here it comes. And it just, I woke up this morning and I'm looking at the news, and I was actually watching Rob Haswell on Fox 6 this morning. And he was the one that said, yeah, it's going to be, some wind. It could be a blizzard type condition, but it's anywhere from 4.5 to 8 inches total. And I'm like, well, what happened to the 17 that I was hearing about yesterday? Obviously, I wasn't paying attention to Rob yesterday. But yeah, I'm just like, you got to be kidding me, man. 4 inches of snow and a little bit of wind. That's not a storm. That's a bad day on a Friday. Who cares? So anyway, 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. If you want to hit us up, please feel free to go ahead and do so. Camp Lejeune Water Chugging says it's a microcosm, talking about baseball, of America. The 25 teams who are not rich enough to exceed a salary cap have been convinced that someday they will be able to spend like that, so they keep their options open. And the Yankees pay the luxury tax for the privilege of treating them like farm teams. The Yankees, the Mets, the Dodgers, the Angels, absolutely. Now, the question is, my buddy, I got a text during the show here, and a buddy of mine said, well, don't the Mets get some of that back through the luxury tax? No. The teams that don't pay into the luxury tax are the teams that get the money. The teams that do not get the money. That's the way it works. So if you keep your payroll under a certain amount, you will get a portion of that money. The teams that are on the lesser end of the payroll, and that's part of the problem, is you get a team like it was Pittsburgh and the Marlins not that long ago that were actually going to be sued by baseball because their payrolls were so low. That money, that luxury tax money, is supposed to go into two things: payroll for teams or improvement of the minor league system. It is not to pay off your bills. It's not to pay off stadium debt. It's not to pay off, like build new scoreboards or anything. That's not what that money's for. The money is supposed to strictly stay for payroll and the subsidization of your minor league system to continue to build through the minor leagues. So that way everybody becomes competitive. And the Marlins were keeping that money. They were sitting on it. They weren't spending it, but they were sitting on it. And the owner for years and years and years was just pocketing the money, just putting the money back into a pot. And that's the reason people were getting pissed. So the owners have had themselves to blame for their own ineptitude for a long period of time. But you look at a guy like Mark Attanasio, they have an incredibly small media fund, media market when it comes to the actual money. Although they do get 2.5 million people through the gates, they have a small media market to draw from. That's commercials, that's inventory of radio, television, the deals with, say, Bally's, the deals with, I think it's WTMJ in Milwaukee, and then obviously the affiliates to pay. There just isn't that kind of money in these markets. There just isn't. So, and the way it works is like your flagship station, whether it's Bally's or, the radio side, they pay for the rights. So they'll pay you $4 million a year, $5 million a year. And then they have to go out and sell that in advertising to make that money back plus some, or sell it in rights fees. And some of that money goes to the team. Some of that money goes back into the flagship station for the privilege of carrying those games. And there's just not that kind of money here. You think about the Yes Network, which the Yankees own, and all the money, all the revenue, all those sales, all those businesses, all those opportunities in New York versus Wisconsin, that pays it tenfold, 20-fold, 50-fold in New York as opposed to here. Now, granted, the expenses are far higher there, but overall, I mean, it's an innately unfair system. And that's part of the problem with Major League Baseball is they just don't recognize that, And D. Rich, you're right. He said the NFL passed Major League Baseball decades ago. Why? In large part due to hope. Basically, every has hope almost all the time. 26.28% of the fan bases, or 26 to 28 plus fan bases, have hope for the postseason in the NFL and maybe a title run. You can't say that about baseball. Start of every year, there's already 10 to 12 teams that know they don't have a shot. They just flat out don't have a shot. And when you see a couple of one contract, like Correa's contract with the Mets, one contract like that, that's it for the Brewers. The Mets have like 4 of them now. That's why it's unbelievably ridiculous, the problems in baseball. And baseball just doesn't care. It's almost like one year what needs to happen is, and you hate to do this, but one year what needs to happen is people just need to say enough. Until you fix the economic inequities, enough. We're not going to come. We're not going to tune in. We're not going to listen. Baseball is dead to us. You need to go away and fix yourself and then come back. But nobody's going to do that. But that's kind of what needs to happen. And then baseball go, oh, holy crap, because ultimately what drives it is the rights and the marketing deals. But because they're not organized like the NBA and the NFL in television rights deals in that same sense with the same amount of money because of their failing ratings, they don't have that ability to kind of put everybody up under an umbrella and say, let's get this thing right. It's a different animal. I understand that, but there has got to be a better answer than just being the wild, wild west. I get it every day. Every day there's a baseball conversation that seeps into my discussions, and every day it's the same thing. How can baseball survive like this? I don't care about it anymore. They lost me years ago. It's boring. It's slow. It's on and on and on and on. Brewers fans go. Brewers fans do have a little bit of hope, and they're very faithful and they're very supportive. But there's just, my buddies in Cincinnati, they have no hope. I got a buddy of mine that lives in Pittsburgh. They have no hope. I got a friend of mine that works in the business that works for the Royals. They have no hope. I talked to him. I said, well, at least you've won a World Series. He's like, that's not going to happen for another 50 years. We know that. I'm like, okay. And you work with a team. So that's what's disappointing. 877. Go ahead, Ben.
That could all be true. I also think Brewers fans are more than in the right to be disappointed in how Atanasio spends money.
That too.
Where there's an inherent disadvantage when it comes to buying players and the payroll, but still the owner at the top is showing a reluctance to do it.
Yes, I completely agree. And then you have to believe if you're a player or two away, what can you do to bolster your team? And year after year after year after year after year, you are told as a fan base, you are going to get somebody's worn out late hand-me-downs, and you're going to hope that you don't blow a hole in it prior to the end of the season. That's what you're going to get. The New York Mets estimated payroll tax. Here you go. The New York Mets payroll. Think about this for a minute. Now, remember, the Brewers are going to be like $125 million. Okay? Payroll. The Mets, $502 million. The Yankees, 310. San Diego Padres, 251. Philadelphia, 245. And Philadelphia spends money, but 245. Toronto, 228. And it goes down. The Angels, 219. The Dodgers, 211. Remember when the Dodgers were spending $300 million and we thought that was ridiculous? Here's the Mets. Hold my beer. Houston, 208. Boston, 206. White Sox, 201. Cubs, 200. Texas, 199. Colorado, 184. And San Francisco, 179. San Francisco, top 15, 179. Brewers, not even close. The bottom half, St. Louis, Seattle, Detroit, Milwaukee at 136 million. And that's number 19. That's in the top 20 at least. Oakland, 70, which is ridiculous. Pittsburgh, 77, ridiculous. Baltimore, 85, ridiculous. Cincinnati, 86, ridiculous. Kansas City at 103. Those teams right there, all small market teams, keeping it 100 or less, which is a tragedy. Tight-fisted owners who don't want to spend the money. They want to suck up the money to the teats of the high market teams, and they pocket the money. That's part of the problem. And that's the reason the players are like, you know what? Screw those guys. They're getting salary. They're getting luxury tax money, and they're not even spending it. They're the problem. They're the problem in Major League Baseball. 877-867-1670. Okay, I apologize. I've gone on way too long. We'll get back into a lot of football. Want to get into that discussion. Also, we'll talk some more baseball. Don't worry. But if you want to chime in, you can. 877-867-1670. 877-867-1670. A small market team that spends money and does great job in promotions and advertising and such. That's Milwaukee Admirals. Winning hockey as well. They're on a quest, hopefully, to get a Calder Cup, go deeper into the postseason this year, maybe grab themselves a championship. That is the Milwaukee Admirals. Go to MilwaukeeAdmirals.com. MilwaukeeAdmirals.com. Great stuff from the Admirals. Good stuff there.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
This December, it's a cash avalanche at Potawatomi. Saturdays, you could get buried in up to 10 grand cash. Plus, all the unclaimed prizes snowball into a huge cash jackpot at the end of the month. Just play with your club card for a chance to win. Sure, presents are nice, but nothing beats cold, hard cash. Only at Potawatomi Hotel and Casino. More info at payasbig.com/coldcash. Must be 21 years old to play.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. Good to have you. The Bill Michaels Show. We continue on. What are you looking to do for New Year's? Some of you, big parties, big cities. Others want to get away. That's the Four Seasons Island Resort up in the beautiful Miscano Island. They've got Rocker for New Year's Eve entertainment. Not a bad way to go. If you're looking for something maybe a little bit later than that, they have coming up in January the 28th. They've got the Miscano Island Chocolate Festival coming up. There's chocolate drinks and beverages and different stuff to nosh on, all kinds of good stuff. So if you're looking to head up to the Four Seasons Island Resort, which you know I go there every year, a couple times a year at least, beautiful place. And I was mentioning to you earlier this week that somebody had posted to me on Facebook and said, well, what's there to do there for a family? I said, look, you can do everything from, you got a huge pool, there's golf, there's tennis, there's hiking. There's so many different things in this. So the waterfall tours in the summertime. In the wintertime, now that we've got the snow coming, the trails are going to be open. Snowmobiles, sleds of all type. Remember, down at the Boundary Water Sports Bar and Grill, when I've gone up there in February and March, it's probably got more snowmobiles parked out front than it does vehicles. But it's fun. It's a great place to go. Historic. So many nuances to it. It's the Four Seasons Island Resort. And if you want to get a hold of our girl, Barb, B-A-R-B, Barb at thefourseasonswisconsin.com. Barb at thefourseasonswisconsin.com, or call them 715-324-5800. But you use the code BillMichaels15. You get 15% off your stay. It's that simple. 715-324-5800. 715-324-5800. Great place to get away. Doesn't matter what time of year. It's beautiful up there. Just beautiful. But you want to go up. You want to get away. You want to feel isolated, but you're still, within an hour's drive of cities. You can always go to Iron Mountain. It's a little bit shorter away, but a lot of good stuff. And don't forget to use the code BillMichaels15, BillMichaels15. Get 15% right there off your stay just because you listen to the program. Again, that's the Four Seasons Island Resort up in Pembine, Wisconsin. Good stuff. All right, let's get back at it. We got our guys on hold. Derek listening to us in Albany. Derek, how you doing, man? What's going on?
Hey, Bill, enjoying the show. I enjoy your perceptions and your sense of humor, man. That bit about the, looking across the room at the chick, the perfect chick and the whole thing, man, I was just dying. You painted that so fantastically. And then, that was terrific, man.
Good, glad.
You gotta use it. You gotta use it as a sound drop or hotkey or something, man. That was pretty funny. Hey, I'm, living where I live, I'm surrounded by, obnoxious Yankee fans and Met fans who aren't so insufferable. But I look at the history of baseball versus football. And I told your screener, I said, man, I'll keep this short. But for me, it's not just the money thing. The money thing is big. It's the history of baseball in that, the Yankees have had everything their way since like the 20s because there was no draft in baseball, Bill. There's no draft. So people say, what does that mean? Well, that means that some guy like Mickey Mantle or some guy coming off a farm in Iowa, where's he going? He's going to New York City. Right. He's going to the big market. They got every player they wanted in history. Okay, like actors, Omaha, Nebraska, Hollywood. So the Yankees had a built-in advantage. So this whole BS about Yankee mystique is a bunch of crap to me. Mystique is when you have the disadvantages, like early '60s Green Bay Packers. Black players didn't want to go to Green Bay. It's colder than a well digger's, you know what? Mm-hmm. And that's mystique to me. So this whole Yankee mystique, which I'm fed up with around, and based at its only times. If you had equity, I'm not for socialism, Bill, politically, but that's what you need in baseball. Wellington Mara of the Giants, of the New York Giants, and I think it was like 1960 or 61, he made sure that Green Bay and the smaller markets would share from an equal pie. He made sure of that. I mean, look at the history of baseball. Your listeners out there who might be like 55 and older. In the early 70s, Bill, what did you have? You had the Pirates, the Reds, the Oakland A's, the Kansas City Royals. You had all these venerable, great franchises. And now they can't compete. Maybe once in a while, a blip on the radar, but they can't compete.
Right.
And it irks me. And I'm so happy to hear you do this. I've gone on national shows and complained, and Yankee fans, the intelligent ones will say to me, oh, I get why you hate the Yankees. I'm like, yeah, I can't freaking stand them. I hate it.
Here's the thing is I don't even hate the Yankees because the Yankees are taking advantage of a very poor system. No big deal. If I had an owner that would spend a ton of money, I'd love them and I'd be a passionate fan and I'd know we have a chance every year. So I hate them in the sense that it's not that I hate them because I hate them. I hate them because I'm damn jealous of them.
Bill, the draft started in 1965. So people look it up. The draft started in 65. And the only time in baseball history you had a level playing field, truly, Bill, was 1965 to the early 70s when everybody had the same shot. There wasn't a big money. There wasn't cable TV. From 1965 to the early 70s, what did the Yankees do? They didn't do squat, okay? Mm-hmm. And then in the early 70s, Steinbrenner's money came along and all this stuff happened. It's like, give me a freaking break. Mm-hmm. It's like, I just hate the obnoxious attitude of that. Yeah. And I'm like, screw you. I'm ready to argue, if not fight 5 of them at a time. I'm sick of it.
Well, hopefully you don't fight them, but I get what you're saying. I appreciate the phone call. I understand it. I understand the angst. Okay. But I don't hate Yankees fans. I just don't. There's an obnoxious there to them. I can hate a Yankee fan as much as I can hate a Cubs fan. There's an obnoxiousness, but it's part of it is the innate, we always talk about, the big brother that looks upon Wisconsin, that being Illinois, that looks upon Wisconsin as the ugly stepchild, but yet, the Packers have been the one winning consistently and beating the hell out of the Bears for years and years and years. And they badmouth it and they hate it, but they're jealous of it. They'd love to have what the Packers have had for 3 decades, right? No doubt. Whereas we can't stand the Cubs because the Cubs are obnoxious and they haven't necessarily been winners consistently, but they won a championship. And we hated it. We hated it because we have this inferiority complex. This is the way we feel about Yankees. This is the way we feel about the Cubs. This is the way we feel about certain markets. Even though the Cubs have not been perennial winners year after year, they're still a major market. But when you look at the Dodgers, we hate the Dodgers. It's a passive crowd. It's the late arriving. It's the who's who. It's the glitter people. They're not true fans, They're not passionate fans. We are. And we deserve better because we've supported them. My biggest argument has always been, when Mark Antanasio sat with Doug Melvin years and years and years and years ago and started to talk about the tear down and the rebuild, and Doug went out and in come David Stearns. And so this is what we're going to do. Bear with us. Okay. We as fans said, we got your back. We're still going to show up. We love baseball. We got your back. We're going to be there. No problem. Okay. And you kind of went for it. And you spent your money on Christian Yelich. The problem is that didn't work out, but we appreciate that you did that. But there's other things to be had here. Don't cheap us now because we supported you. We came out. Fans came out. I'm not going to say me because I'm just there, But you fans came out. You kept supporting him. You kept doing your thing. You did what he asked you to do. Now what you're saying is, come on, dude. Let's go, man. Don't act like suddenly you're driving a 1972 Ford Pinto. Come on. At least get yourself into the 80s and 90s. Don't act like you're driving the Ford Pinto still. Using regular gas when everybody else is flying around in electric cars. Come on. And sometimes you get that feeling. And we're small market. After a while, fans get tired of hearing that. And if it's so innately wrong, then why aren't you the owner that's standing up to say something is wrong here? We need to fix the system. No, why? Because you're going to take the money, you're going to take the luxury tax, you're going to wrap your arms around it. You're going to do a few things. I get it. But then you say one thing about, hey, the power hitter, Ben. Juan Soto, no problem. We were in on that. It wasn't about the money, but yet we're going to get rid of Josh Hader. Fans aren't stupid. We know what you did. You didn't want to pay him. He was coming up on arbitration, going to make a ton of money. You don't want to pay a reliever, a closer between $15 and $19 million a year. We see it. We get it. You're cheap. We get it. But that's part of the problem with baseball. And baseball doesn't understand it. That we can see it. We're not dumb. We can see it. So you just keep going on, doing what you're doing. Very little, if any, hope for a lot of teams at the beginning of the season. Keep watching it go down the tube. Keep watching the ratings go down. Keep figuring out ways to bring people into the stands to watch a long, slow game when the obvious things are right there in front of you. You refuse to do that. And just keep doing your thing and hoping that people come back. When all you can say is all we do is hope that people come back, you've screwed up your product. 877-867-1670. Hang in there. We got more right after this.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Ho, 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 I need new windows.
Baby, it's cold outside.
So where do I go? Ho, ho.
Come on, Santa. Go to Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. Now is the time to replace your leaky windows and doors. You and Mrs. Claus can get your new windows while putting no money down, no payments, and no interest for up to 24 months. Unwrap this gift now, but pay for it 2 years later.
More jingle that stays in my pocket.
That's right, Santa. Plus, our elves install year-round and in as little as 1 day. Pella offers lines in luxurious wood to fiberglass and vinyl.
Why not make a New Year's resolution today?
That's the spirit, Santa.
Hella no, pay later. Ho, ho.
Absolutely. Put no money down, no payments, and no interest for up to 24 months. But you have to hurry. Offer ends December 31st. Schedule your free consultation today at PellaWI.com.
Sure, with the license for details.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Now, in Green Bay, here's Mike Clemens.
The Packers beat the Rams 24-12 on Monday Night Football. Romeo Doubs led the team in receptions with 5 catches for 55 yards and was asked if the team can win 3 more.
I mean, the potential is there. It's just up to us, if anything happens outside of what we are supposed to do, that's just shooting ourselves in the foot. But, I mean, again, on to the next phase, just ready to grind again.
Rom, how did it feel for you to be out there tonight?
It felt great. Thought it was great timing on when I was supposed to come back. Got a team win. On to the next.
Running back Aaron Jones rushed for 90 yards on 17 carries and was asked how his fellow running back A.J. Dillon helped him.
Huge. We were able to run the ball, get that established, and we giving each other breathers, but still keeping it going is a huge part of it, and that's something that we look to do, be the spark on the offense.
The Rams fall to 5-9, having lost 7 of their last 8 games. Head coach Sean McVay.
I thought our guys battled. I thought there was, some real positives, but there was also a handful of instances where we didn't capitalize on some opportunities that we did have. Took a couple negatives on some chances where we had some, shots down the field versus some favorable looks, but we didn't get it done. We'll continue to look inward and move forward and be ready to go against the Broncos.
Green Bay has now won 4 of their last 6 games and head to Miami to play the Dolphins. Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers.
I said it earlier, I think we can beat anybody. We can also lose to anybody. But when you win a couple in a row, it starts to give you some confidence. Now we're playing against some better football teams down the stretch that we can go to Miami and win.
That's Aaron Rodgers. In Green Bay, I'm Mike Clemens on the
good stuff there. Still 109. Still a tremendous place. They have tremendous weekend as well as New Year's Eve and on into the New Year. So if you're looking for some place to go in that Watertown area, stop in. Whether it's either location for that matter, hopefully Philly's Hog Alley looking at me. Can't wait. That place is unbelievable. Beautiful, beautiful. So hopefully we get to see it real soon.
877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. If you want to hit us up, feel free. Give us a shout. Let's see here. We got, by the way, we got Mark Schofield coming up next. So Mark Schofield, SB Nation, going to be joining us coming up next here. And this is from Jason, who said, look at what the Brewers are going to be, about $130 to $140 million next year. While I'm excited about the team, I still don't think they're going to be that competitive. And when it comes to the money that's being spent by other teams, the Brewers don't even have a shot at acquiring some of these players. That's the most disappointing thing, is that other teams can build super teams while the Brewers have to find the diamonds in the rough and just hope for the best. Hope is one thing, but to know that you're already behind the 8 ball before you even start your season is another. And that's where baseball is so wrong. I agree. Football, you can turn it around in a year or two. You can get a couple of good drafts, get a couple of free agents, get yourself out of salary cap jail. You're okay. Baseball, you don't have that. It's such a weird system, and the owners don't want to give up certain rights. They don't want to give up certain arbitration eligible years and such. They don't want to give any of that stuff up. None of that. I apologize for not getting back to the phone calls. We were up against the clock, so hang in there. I know Gerard will get to you coming up here in a little while. Got Mark Schofield of SB Nation is going to be joining us coming up next. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at Albanese's Roadhouse. Say hi to Joey and the gang. They've got all your Italian holiday feasting going on, catered events and such going into the new year. Stay tuned. Oh, by the way, they're right there on Blue Mountain Road in Brookfield, in Waukesha, right next to Menards. Great people, great place. That's Albanese's Roadhouse in Waukesha. Stay tuned. We got more coming up after this. Welcome in. Good to have you. The Bill Michaels Show. We continue on this Wednesday. Ben Kenny producing the program. I'm Bill Michaels, and we're just kind of waiting for the Great White Death to take over as the snow is on its way. Depending on where you're at, what you're going to get. The cold's coming. We all know that. Packers heading down to Miami this weekend to play on Christmas Day. Hopefully, giving Packers fans everywhere the Christmas present they're hoping for. Bringing in now from SB Nation, our guy, Mark Schofield, joining us. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Bill. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. So let's first start out with the Packers and getting the win the other night against the Rams. Aaron Rodgers says things are getting better. Do you see it?
I honestly do. Watching that game Monday night, studying that game this morning, particularly the passing game, and it seemed like things were starting to click. I think having Romeo Doubs back was a nice aspect to that. You know, he had some catches early in that game, had some catches, you know, in the second half of that game as well. And you could see, you know, particularly there was a route early in the game where, you know, he breaks to the outside, then works his way back inside. That's a nice timing and chemistry route between quarterback and receiver. And my main takeaway, honestly, and this is something I've been thinking about since Monday night, was if I'm Aaron Rodgers, you see what this offense can be now. You see what this offense can be with Watson, with Romeo Doubs, what this passing game could look like, how the run game could work and build in off of that. And, you know, I know that the Packers are still technically alive. They've still got a pathway to get into the playoffs. But even if they don't, I have to think that with the way this season has sort of wound down for Green Bay, Rodgers now has a couple of reasons to really want to come back, because this passing game could be something, I'd say, you know, pretty special next year with these two young receivers and with Rodgers back in the fold. And so I do think it's getting better in the passing game. I do think this offense has started to click. It might be, you know, too little too late for this season, but I think next is looking pretty bright.
Excuse me. The rest of the division, we know that obviously the Minnesota Vikings have clinched. We know that that the Lions have really come on strong. Give me your thoughts on the Lions, first and foremost, as they have gotten better as the season has gone on.
Yeah, they have gotten better. I mean, I think a lot of it starts with Jared Goff, and he's not turning the ball over. You know, I was very curious. We talked about this last week with that Jets game. You know, that was the kind of game where, you know, the Jets are kind of built to beat what Detroit was doing this year. The ability to get pressure with four. Sauce Gardner is such a talented young cornerback. And you saw that Lions offense, you know, struggle. They weren't scoring to the rate, you know, and didn't score in that game at the rate that they had been for most of the season, particularly during this run of games where they've got themselves back into the playoff mix. But the Lions found a way. And in typical, I think, sort of Dan Campbell, Detroit Lions of 2022 fashion, that game would drive. It starts with Brock Wright with a drop, but they come right back to him on 4th and 1. He was the second read on that play where you've got Monroe St. Brown in the flat. That's not there. Goff does a really good job of getting back to Wright for the touchdown. They're a team that's coming together and playing their best football in December, which is what you really want. And, you know, looking ahead for the Detroit Lions, they've got themselves, like we said, they're back in the playoff mix. They get a Carolina team on the road that's a little bit frisky, you know, that defense particularly. But, you know, they get past that. You know, you got Chicago week 17. Chicago certainly, you know, playing for next year. And then you get the Packers in week 18 who might be eliminated by then. They could win all three of these games and really get in. I've been very impressed, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, particularly with Jared Goff. And with Goff, especially against that defense last week, finding a way to win.
Now, we know that the Lions are fighting for a spot. The Commanders are fighting for a spot. The Packers are fighting for a spot. We know all these teams are right there on the cusp. Who has a legit shot? We know the Commanders, you know, it's a tough schedule. They could find themselves on the outside looking in. The Lions are trying to get in. The Packers, all they got to do is win out and hope for a little bit of help. That seems likely. Who do you think are going to be the last few in when it comes to the postseason?
Yeah, I mean, I look at Detroit and the way that they've come on down the stretch here. You know, they've found a sort of winning recipe on both sides of the ball, but particularly, you know, on that offensive side of the ball, like we talked about with, you know, how Jared Goff is playing, how they're not turning the ball over, how they're finding a way to get things done. You know, the Commanders really sort of confused me because I thought looking at between them and the Giants that, you know, Washington had a nice favorable situation with, you know, 3 of their final 4 at home. You would think, oh, they're going to find a way to get this done. Now they lose to the Giants. They have to go cross-country to play San Francisco. Then the week after that, they get a Cleveland team that, you know, Watson seems to be settling into that offense. So I think, you know, the Commanders are probably going to fade out of these teams. I think right now with the way things stand and the way that teams are playing, I think the Lions are the team that gets in out of that group. You know, but the Packers, they still have a shot. I think the Commanders, like I said, it's surprising to me because I thought they were going to be a team that got in and the Giants would fall out. But it does look like the Commanders are going to end up sliding out of this because, you know, they couldn't get it done against New York. Now they've got, you know, these next 2 games, San Francisco and Cleveland, a trip to the West Coast, which is tough, and a Cleveland offense that seems to be figuring some things out with Watson.
When you've got the top of this conference, the Eagles right now, they've got Jalen Hurts with a bum shoulder. The Cowboys are fighting for a spot as well, and Dak Prescott continues to throw interceptions. We talked about the Vikings a little bit. Who looks like the best team coming out of the NFC right now?
I mean, it still looks like the Eagles, but you have to wonder about Hurts because before he went down, we've talked about this, Bill. Complete team on both sides of the ball, right? They could run the ball like we saw against the Packers. They could throw it like we've seen the past couple of weeks against Tennessee, against the Giants, but you wonder, and their center, Jason Kelsey, talked about this on his show, his podcast with his brother, making the case for Hurts as the MVP, saying that everything that they do on offense starts with Jalen Hurts. It begins with what he can do, the threat he poses, both as a runner and a thrower. If he's less than 100% when he comes back, that's going to sort of hurt their chances a little bit. Now, they're in a very unique situation. They just need either a win in the final 3 games or, a loss from one of the other teams chasing them to lock up the top overall seed. So they don't have to force Hurts back. They can take some time. But, thinking about this in terms of his time away from the field, if they shut him down now and they don't play him until the divisional round, if they do lock up, like we expect, that top overall seed, that's what, 4 or 5 weeks of off the field rest and action? That's a lot of rust to kick off in a divisional round playoff game where things can change in a hurry. And so they are in a unique situation. I wonder how they're going to handle it. Do they try to get him back for the Saints game? Do they play him in, say, week 18 against the Giants, just kick some of that rust off? I don't know how they're going to handle it. I don't know how he's going to be when he comes back. I think they're the most complete team. But as opposed to, say, this time last week when we thought, oh, yeah, it's absolutely the Eagles, the Hurts injury is certainly something to watch.
Talk about San Francisco real quick. Brock Purdy, is this a guy capable? I mean, he certainly has injected energy and excitement into the San Francisco fan base, but is this a guy capable of really taking this team, not screwing it up and allowing the defense to do what they do, taking this team deep into the postseason?
It looks like it right now, but the big question is going to be the next couple of weeks because we've seen this before, right? Quarterback comes in, don't have a ton of film on him, at least from what he's done on an NFL field. He looks good at the start, but then defenses figure out, okay, well, now we've taken the time to study him in this offense, in this environment, in this setting. Here are the things we can do to sort of slow him down, eliminate what he does. And so we're going to see over the next couple of weeks if Brock Purdy, if there really is some magic happened here, or it was just a case of teams didn't know what to expect. And now that they've sort of seen some film from him from the past couple of weeks, they can figure him out. But what we've seen the past 2 weeks makes me believe that this could continue. And again, it was the same sort of argument that applied to Garoppolo before his injury applies here. The defense, the talent around the quarterback position, what Kyle Shanahan can do conceptually, the play design, and creating and then exposing and taking advantage of mismatches with McCaffrey, with Samuel when he comes back. All those arguments that applied to Garoppolo, they apply to Purdy as well. And like you said, he's shown a little bit more flash and ability to create a little bit off script, to, be a bit more explosive at times, dynamic outside the pocket than Garoppolo. And so if that holds, this run could continue.
So to the AFC, because the AFC to me is just a little bit deeper, maybe Buffalo, Kansas City, Cincinnati's playing extremely well. I think Baltimore, when they get Lamar Jackson, obviously going to be a problem. The Miami Dolphins are still somewhat of an enigma. Can Tua really be the guy when it comes to the postseason? Yes or no? You still got New England battling, the Jets battling. You got a little more depth there. Jacksonville's coming on extremely strong right now. Talk about the AFC, because we still feel it's going to be Buffalo and Kansas City. But after winning now, 6 in a row, I think Cincinnati's one of those teams to be contended with. Tennessee can still run the ball in cold weather. Give me your thoughts there.
Yeah, we look at Buffalo, we look at Kansas City, and certainly, we expect them to be in the mix deep into the playoffs, divisional round, maybe another AFC championship game like we saw from them 2 years ago. Obviously, they met up a divisional round last year in that game. But I look at the way Cincinnati has played in the past couple of weeks, and what stands out, beyond the things that, we've all talked about, figuring out too high, figuring out a run game out of shotgun. For a younger team, Burrow, Chase, even a younger head coach, they're a veteran team. they don't panic. They get down to Kansas City. They don't panic. They run their offense. They do what they do, and they find a way to come back. They get down last week against Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. They don't panic. The offense looks the same in the second half as it did in the first. They understand that, hey, we don't have to worry here. If we get down, that's okay. We've done it before. We can come back. That's an impressive aspect to a roster. You know, like we've sometimes seen a team that loses a Super Bowl, they go in the absolute other direction the following season. They seem like they're more locked in now than ever before. And I look at the Bengals and think, you know, yes, Mahomes and company, they're dangerous. Josh Allen and company, they're certainly dangerous. The Bengals are a team I don't want to face. You know, I think Miami had a nice game against Buffalo, and they showed that, you know, obviously the build-up to that game was the weather, how they're going to handle it. They seemed like they were able to handle that pretty well. And so maybe they can make a little bit of noise. You know, the Chargers seem to be coming on, but you mentioned the Jacksonville Jaguars. And, you know, there's a path for them to win that division. There's a world which we could live in a couple of weeks where their game against Tennessee in Week 18 gets flexed to Sunday night because the division is on the line, and they find a way to get in. They seem to be coming on. Trevor Lawrence seems to be putting it together, living up to some of the pre-draft hype around him. Jacksonville's a team that I think something's happening down there, and it wouldn't surprise me to see that Week 18 game between them and the Titans before the division and before that final playoff spot.
Yeah, Doug Peterson has done a world of wonder after what the tragedy was last year that Urban Meyer just completely ripped that team up. So we give him all the credit in the world. Real quick before I let you go, and we go back to the Green Bay Packers now. Packers offensively seem to be getting things together. It looks like Rodgers is getting a little more comfortable. The thumb is healed up. The ribs are feeling good. Do they have – is they still believe this defense we saw for the majority on paper? Does this team have the ability to be better, to be more aggressive, to be, because we didn't see a lot of missed tackles and such the other night, but they've got, and it used to be where you could just say Detroit at the end of the season, that's a win. You can't say that anymore because those two teams could still be fighting to get into the postseason. 3 tough games. If the Packers should win the next 3 games, Miami, Minnesota, and Detroit, they would be then, in my opinion, not only are they beating good teams, but one of the hottest teams going into the postseason at that time with 5 straight wins to get there, you know?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I think you're right. The talent is there on paper on the defensive side of the ball for this defense to be better than what we've seen. And this was, if you think back to August, that was the argument, right? Well, the offense might take some time to come together, but the defense is going to be good. You know, the defense is going to give them some short fields, some opportunities for some quick scoring drives. Maybe it's coming together here at the end of the season, what we thought we were going to see from the Packers, because now that passing game is clicking, and maybe that defense is starting to piece it all together. You know, it could be just enough to get them in, because like you said, if they win out, they're going to beat some good teams along the way, and they might become sort of this year's version of the Niners last year, which was that proverbial team you don't want to face.
Good stuff as always, my friend Mark. Have a great Christmas, and then we'll talk again next week, okay?
You too, Bill. Have a fantastic Christmas to you, to yours, and to all the listeners. Thanks so much. We'll talk next week.
All right, buddy. Talk to you later. There you go. Mark Schofield of SB Nation joining us for a couple of minutes at Mark Schofield over on Twitter. You can find his stuff there. Good stuff. And he's right. I mean, you start to look at some of the question marks coming down the stretch. You know, obviously the Eagles, you would assume, are going to pretty much wrap up everything, and they should be the top team going in with or without Jalen Hurts playing over the next couple of weeks. But, you know, Ben, how confident are you that they pull off a victory against the Cowboys if Hurts does not play?
Weirdly confident. I just have one of those feelings about that game where everybody is going to discount them. The line's going to be 7 points. And then Gardner Minshew could come in and play fine, but I think their team is good enough to withstand it. But if they do or if they don't, I don't think it matters, because then they play the Saints, who stink, and then they play the Giants. I don't think the Giants game at the end of the year is for anything.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning in that direction myself. But I agree with you. I think right now it's more about not even the Eagles playing their best. I think it's more about Dak Prescott. He is stuck in a funk, and for whatever reason, turnovers have become prevalent for him. And I've said all along, first of all, I don't think Dak Prescott, and people rip me for this, but I said I never thought Dak Prescott was going to be great. I always thought he would be Dak Prescott, which he's good. He's going to win you some games. He's also going to throw the ball away and lose you some games. And we keep waiting for Dak to be better, and he's not. That's the thing. Dak isn't better. He's just Dak. And I don't see Dak, even with the tutelage of Mike McCarthy in the quarterback school, I don't see Dak getting better. He's just Dak. He's going to play well. He's above average, and then he's going to turn the ball over, and he's going to make bad reads, bad decisions, and it is what it is.
They're also
go ahead.
very injured,
yes,
which is a big part of it. Jason Peters is starting. That tells you enough.
Yeah, there you go. Let's see here. The Packers get a win on Sunday or on Monday night. And when you talk about things that came out of that game, one thing that I think Aaron Rodgers stated on Pat McAfee, and I just reiterated it to Mark Schofield, was when he was talking about how he thinks things are getting better and the energy's different and guys are buying in. And, he started talking about the locker room and how things are kind of going. And you always wait for that moment in a season. When do things get better? Was it the fourth quarter of the Bears game that suddenly when this team showed some fight and the defense showed some fight and the tenacity level went up a little bit and they believed they could win, and a couple of passes downfield to Christian Watson. And when Watson's not there, now you got Romeo Doubs back and he's crossing over the middle and picking up first downs, and the run game and the 1-2 punch, which by the way, we mentioned yesterday that Dillon has been cleared to play in this upcoming game. And I said it didn't look like one of those concussions where he was wobbly or anything like that. He jogged off the field. But you just have to pass a certain baseline, and he passed it yesterday. So that was good news. Do you think this is sustainable? Is this sustainable? 877-867-1670. This portion of the program brought to you by Bud Light. Don't forget, tonight, DJ's Goalpost out in Menominee Falls, going to be on Appleton Avenue. Come on out. Be there this evening. Great sports bar. But tonight we've got the Bill Michaels Huddle going to be on the road. DJ's Goalpost in Menominee Falls coming up a little bit later on tonight. And again, it's all brought to you by our friends at Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the Bill Michaels Sports Talk Network.
Ready? This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
This December, it's a cash avalanche at Potawatomi. Saturdays, you could get buried in up to 10 grand cash. Plus, all the unclaimed prizes snowball into a huge cash jackpot at the end of the month. Just play with your club card for a chance to win. Sure, presents are nice, but nothing beats cold, hard cash. Only at Potawatomi Hotel and Casino. More info at paysbig.com/cold cash. Must be 21 years old to play.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Let's get to it. Our buddy Gerard listening to us in Delaware. Gerard, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Hey, Bill. I'd like to comment on the baseball thing first. Look, since the year 2010, after the 2010, since last the Yankees won, the Yankees have spent over 2.8 billion on free agents. Not their own. Each on their own. On that, they haven't won since 2010. The Mets luxury tax is $111 million. So that's more than 10 or 11 teams. The Dodgers, the last time they won was the COVID year, which was hard. Okay? So the owner's argument would be back to you, would be tell me when the huge payroll team has won it consistently. So that's their argument. And as long as they have that argument, you can't win. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because, look, the Cardinals, my team, they're the fourth richest organization. They do it. They can spend, but they got to do it through trade. They very rarely sign a free agent. Very rare. You know, Contreras was an outline. They used to test the whole bit. So they develop. They have a good minor league. We're going to have some outstanding players coming up this year. Okay?
Right.
But, like I said, the Brewers can't do that. And I hate to say it, but a lot of these teams don't want it. But you see, the whole thing is, as my argument flows, Bill, you can't, if you owned a fast food restaurant there, you wouldn't pay people $25 an hour, would you? If you know what I mean? Your profit margin.
Right.
If you're in those business, it's easy to say for us that the owners are this, the owners are that, blah, blah, blah. But if you're in the business, Bill, you know, how many people would be, you know, giving away the money? You know what I'm saying? There's one Cohen who's met Danny Nobody, and he's a multi-billion, and he throws it away like thousands of dollars, not just, you know what I'm saying? So you got to look at it both ways. You can't just look at it and say, well,
have to, you get up there, you look at the mountaintop, and then you got to go back down. You get up there, you look at the mountaintop, and then you got to go back down. And you're not winning. The Yankees, they're always looking at the mountaintop. They're always looking. The Mets are usually trying to beat them. The Dodgers are usually. All those teams are always right there. They always have right to win. What I'm saying is what's innately wrong is when you start out the season and you know your team isn't going to. You know it. You're hoping to catch lightning in a bottle, but it's not like July you're finding other things to do. You know it. That's what's wrong with baseball. That's my which I completely agree with you. The Dodgers have, or the Yankees have won. That's what they are. 877-867-1670. 877-867-1670. We'll step James. We're going to Green Bay on Monday night. And Rodgers said he feels like they're getting better. Do you agree? Is it sustainable? Stay tuned. More to go, Michael.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Good to have you back. Hey, if you're heading downtown, you're going to be doing some games. Maybe you need some shuttles, good food, beverages, game and back. There you go. That's our friends at Stenny, second to National Walker's Point. Or maybe just you're looking for one of the best sports bars in the state of Wisconsin, really the city of Milwaukee for sure. That is Stenny, second to National Walker's Point. They run shuttles to the Marquette games. Marquette, boy, loser in double overtime last night. Tough one for them. Man, they've had a pretty good season thus far, though, but got beat by Providence. But if you're going to go to Marquette games, UW Milwaukee games, Admirals games, Bucks games, you name it, they do it. That's our friends from Stenny, second to National in Walker's Point. Let's get back to it. Let's go to James listening to us in Green Bay. James, how you doing today, man? What's going on?
Hey, good morning. I just wanted to make a couple comments on a few things. Number one, I think the fate of Joe Barry probably lies within the next 3 games here. If the Packers play well, the defense plays pretty well. Let's say they run the table. Maybe they make the playoffs. Maybe they don't. He probably doesn't get fired, in my guess. Or, if Miami comes out and really blitzes them because they have great speed at the wide receiver position, and I'm a little leery of the Packers defense, he might seal his fate if he has a bad performance in that game defensively. He might end up getting fired by the end of the year. So I don't think his fate is sealed yet. Your comment on the quarterbacks like Dak Prescott, and honestly, I can list quite a few quarterbacks that I have no faith in, to me, that is ever going to lead a team to the Super Bowl. Prescott's one of them. Kyler Murray's another one. If I'm the Baltimore Ravens, there's no way I'm paying Lamar Jackson all that money to be their quarterback. He's always hurt every year. And, Jalen Hurts is another one. He's hurt now, but he's another one that's going to get hurt because they run way too much. Personally, I'd rather have a quarterback that has good athleticism like Trevor Lawrence, who can make plays with his feet and impromptu stuff, but the offense isn't based around him running. And my other comment about Trevor is, why isn't he getting any love for MVP race? They're one game out of the playoff spot, right. And if the Jags run the table, they're in the playoffs.
You know what? I bet you this is going to be one of those years where he gets some discussion and they look at his numbers. He's starting to play better. And then next year he becomes a guy that gets into that race. I just think right now there's more Jalen Hurts, and look at what he's done and how he's excelled. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is a guy that's played extremely well. There's maybe a couple other guys you can mention into it. I know they've talked about Joe Burrow turning the season around and such, but I agree with you. Trevor Lawrence has had a hell of a season this year.
Yeah, and I think he's a guy that is definitely going to lead the Jags with Doug Peterson there to a Super Bowl because of the fact that he plays and makes his plays from the pocket. And sure, they can still get hurt in the pocket. I understand that, but they're way protected in the pocket. The chances of a player like Hurts or Justin Fields or even Josh Allen from the Bills, who are continually running quarterback sweeps and all that kind of stuff, their chances to me are much greater that they're going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree with you. I've always said those running quarterbacks, I appreciate the phone call. Running quarterbacks are a great thing to have because it's a weapon that it's very difficult to plan for. They don't necessarily have a ton of designed runs, but they have the athleticism to tuck it and take off. You always have to account for them. You have to spy them. But then again, the downside is at some point they're going to run, and they're not running backs. They don't prepare that way. They don't lift that way. They don't train their bodies that way. They're not running backs. They're quarterbacks. And like every running quarterback, eventually you're going to get hurt. Jalen Hurts is hurt. Lamar Jackson is hurt. You get running quarterbacks. Eventually they get hurt. Justin Fields, same thing. The quarterbacks that are unbelievably athletic, that love to take off and run and can get it done with their feet, and they're such an asset. It's true because we talk about their, quote, athleticism all the time, but they all get hurt. And there are times where they get hurt, and the sustainability of that, it's just not there. Hopefully they become, as time goes on, a more seasoned and better pocket passer, and they don't rely on the legs other than just to scramble out of the way of harm's way rather than to actually be the asset of getting downfield and taking off. So it's because we've seen it just forever. Go all the way back to the days of Randall Cunningham. Same thing, getting his knees taken out from underneath him. Go back to when Colin Kaepernick was in his heyday. And finally, after the year of running all over everybody, they said, okay, hit this guy. And they hit him, and he was pretty much done. It is what it is. 877-867-1670. Let's go to Eric, also listening to us in Green Bay. Eric, how you doing, man? What's up?
I'm doing good, Bill. How about yourself?
Doing great. What you thinking?
You and your partner Ben there are having a great show.
I appreciate
I love it. Hey, I'm going to comment on. I'm going to have I have an answer for your Packers question, and then I wanted to comment on the baseball conversation also. Real quickly, your Packers question: is it sustainable? I believe it is. They can't have any more injuries for the rest of the year, especially with their rookies. But if they stay healthy, their rookies are really starting to figure some things out, and they're starting to play good ball. And I think, oddly, injuries have helped Watson and Dobbs because when they were injured was earlier in the year when the other one wasn't injured. So they've each had a chance to figure out what their role is without interference from the other one. And they won't hit a rookie wall this year after playing. They won't play as many games as they did in college until the end of the season. So I think yes, it is sustainable. Now, the baseball conversation, I love this. Okay, because I grew up an A's fan. I'm an A's fan still.
Mm-hmm.
So I have had a team that spent money, and I have had a team that suffers money ball, which is just, it sucks. Money ball sucks. Billy Beane has to be the most frustrated cat in baseball. All right, when Charlie Finley brought the A's to Oakland in '66, spent a bunch of money, and that '70s A's team was one of the best teams baseball has ever seen. And then he had a bicentennial fire sale, and we got to watch all of our heroes finish playing in either pinstripes or, oddly enough, the Brewers, because you got Sal Bando and Raleigh Fingers, and so it's not necessarily, yes, the other team that gets the player, sometimes they win, sometimes they don't, but the team that loses all the players, they eat dung for a decade. It's devastating to that fan base.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
10 years, the A's absolutely sucked. And then the Haas family bought the team. Haas family had money. That's Levi Strauss. And here we have the Roid Rage bunch from the 80s that could have fielded a better defensive unit than many football teams, went to, so they had the Finley squad went to 5 straight series and won the 3 in the center. The Haas family squad went to 3 straight World Series, won the 1 in the center. But we've also had Moneyball, which this is all network garbage, okay? Because you can't tell me that Oakland, California is a small market when San Francisco Giants aren't a small market. It's the same market. How could it be small? Well, TV, whatever. And I wish they would stop trying. This is what drives me crazy, Bill. Stop trying to fix the game for the networks so that your casual viewer that doesn't care will watch it. It's just driving me nuts. All these stupid little league rules. Putting a runner on second base in extra innings. Give me a break. A pitch count, a pitch timer for the pitchers. Oh yes, let's take away the pitcher's ability to control the tempo of the game. By all means, yeah. Ruin the game because you know who it doesn't bother when there's a 1-1 game against 2 aces? The 2 fan bases from which those teams are.
Right.
That's who it's not bothering.
Right.
So yes, parity would be better if that being the farm system for the big money teams have felt both. But stop trying to quote fix end quote the game when you're doing nothing but jacking it all up. It's just, these most recent things are really ticking me off, Bill. They're ruining the game for who? It's driving me crazy.
Right.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call, man.
Nope, I completely get it, man. Appreciate it. He drops off. You get on board 877-867-1670. Again, 877-867-1670. If you want to hit us up, feel free to go ahead and do so. Again, 877-867-1670. Some good stuff. I'm completely in agreement with you. Let's do this. We're going to step away, take a quick break, come right back to the phone calls. Got a lot of people on hold. I promise I'll get to you. Mike and Rockford, you're going to be first out of the chute. Stay tuned. More of the Bill Michaels Show coming up next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Now, in Green Bay, here's Mike Clemens.
The Packers have practice today installing the game plan for their trip to face the Dolphins. Wide receiver Sammy Watkins is now back with the Baltimore Ravens after he was waived by the Packers on Monday. After reviewing the game film, Packers safety Adrian Amos says the key to holding the Rams is just 156 yards total offense was Green Bay's defensive line and the linebackers.
I think our front did a great job. They had a great game. Like our front seven, they controlled it. They weren't able to run the ball. A couple plays here and there, but when the front do that job and dominate up there, then it makes the game a lot more fun for the back end.
Packers head coach Matt LaFleur.
LA has had a rash of injuries up front, so it was a favorable matchup, I would say, for our guys, and that's what you got to do. You got to win when you're expected to win, and I thought for the most part our guys were able to do that.
Rasul Douglas intercepted a Baker Mayfield pass, and instead of just running with it, he says he decided to lateral it to Adrian Amos, who nearly fumbled it.
When he grabbed me, and I kind of twisted me, I seen Smash and Rudy. So I was like, all right, if I could just grip the ball and throw it to one of them.
Smash and Rudy?
No, that's what I messed up. That was my first mistake. You know what I'm saying? That was my first mistake right there. And then when I went to go throw it, it slid. But I was already in the process, so as I was going down, I just underhand, and then I seen it hit the ground. I was like, damn, it's about to be like the Raiders and the Patriots. In my head, I like, damn.
That's Packers defensive back Rasul Douglas. In Green Bay, I'm Mike Clemens on the Bill Michaels Show.
Good to have you back. The Bill Michaels Show. We continue on. 877-867-1670. 877-867-1670. Let's get back to the phone calls talking about the Packers sustainability. Can what we saw on Monday night get better, and can they sustain going all the way through the remainder of the schedule and possibly even into the postseason? Let's go to Mike listening to us in Rockford. Mike, how you doing today, man? What's going on?
Hey, Bill, how you doing?
Doing well.
Listen, I don't want to be negative. And what you just played, some snippets there from the locker room after the Packers win, and what, the coach said about they had some injuries up front. I was watching the game on Monday night, and the announcer said that there was one offensive lineman from last year's championship team. The rest of them are all pads. They had tons of injuries, and I'm not taking anything away from the Packers. Listen, I'm a Packers fan True and true. But I want to be realistic here. The Packers have a 2-game winning streak, which is wonderful. But look at who they played. They have a combined 7-21 record between the Bears and the Rams, and they're both pathetic teams. But it's true. The Packers took care of business. They beat the teams they had to beat, and now the true test is going to come on Christmas Day. I am concerned. I think if the Packers come with their A game, anything can happen, as they say on any given Sunday, Bill. But I think we got to be realistic rather than get too excited. I mean, yeah, they're still in this. They're staying alive. They're just they're treading water, and they have to have some things still go their way with these other teams falling out in certain ways. But I want to ask you a question, Bill, and because I heard this and it blew my mind away. If the Packers lose, and maybe you know the exact scenario that has to happen, because I sure don't. If the Packers lose Sunday, they are still mathematically alive. How in the world can they still win if they would be what would they be 8-9? Wait, they would be. I'm sorry. Yeah, wait.
They would be. If the Packers lose on Sunday, they would be 6-9.
And then with the last 2 games, they would be 8. They would, even if they win out, they'd be 8-9.
8-9.
I can't even. How could that still get them in there? Because I know even like the Lions, who are right there with the Packers, they're a game up, game and a half actually, because they win the head-to-head battle earlier, and they would come to that last game. Do you understand the scenario though?
Yeah, no, I would not know how they would still be alive. I haven't even looked that far, and at that point in time, to be honest, I would assume that if they lose, but say the Giants win, or what have you. I mean, if the Giants get a win, say on this weekend, then the Giants would be 9 wins. They would still be alive. If the Commanders would get a win, then they would still be alive, and probably now the Commanders would have to lose out. Seattle would have to lose out. The Packers would lose, and then still, I don't know how it would end up tied with the Lions or something to that effect. I'm trying to figure this out.
It would be like 0.02%.
Right.
They would need those teams to lose every single game.
Correct.
A lot of other things to happen. It would not be possible.
I just it would not only be that the other teams ahead of them all lose, but it would also be that then other teams in the conference or something to that effect would also need to lose to give the Packers a better win percentage conference wise or something like that. It's like if they lose, their season's over, for lack of a better term. If they lose, their season's over. They're not mathematically eliminated, but they're now down to percentage points.
There's some strength of record, strength of schedule stuff that is just way too hard to grasp.
Yeah, it just gets really weird, but if the Packers lose, their season's done. There's no way they're getting into the postseason. None. I would say none. 877-867-1670. Let's go to Terry, listening to us right here in Wisconsin as well. Terry, how you doing today, man? What's going on?
I'm doing great, Bill. How are you?
Doing great. What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to I have a comment and then a question. I'm watching the game Monday night, and from the very first drive, the offense comes out, and they're taking the routes that are open. They're taking the under routes, and Rodgers is looking sharp. He's hitting the open receivers. I forget how many different guys touched the ball in the first couple of drives, but they looked sharp, and I'm just sitting there going, where's this been all year? So my question to you, and they moved the ball great the whole game. My question is, was it just that the Rams defense is that bad, or was it the too high they were playing the whole game, or have the Packers kind of, had a little come to Jesus and they've decided to run the offense that they're capable of running?
I think, first of all, what the Rams concentrated on was not allowing Christian Watson to get over the top. So they made sure to shut him down in the deep ball. But then the Packers took advantage of what was underneath, and they just worked it that way, which is what you're supposed to do. That was great. But I think more so than anything is the fact that the defense had 5 sacks. I think it was 10 or 11 pressures in that ball game. I also think that the special teams were pretty good. Field position was pretty good. And that the missed tackles were at a minimum. So it was like they played probably one of their more complete games of the season. but you also then have a very guarded view because it was against a team that didn't have their quarterback. They're just really bad, and they're incredibly banged up. So they could have scored 30. If they don't turn the ball over, Rodgers doesn't have the bad errant pass, they could have scored, say, 37 in that game and just blew them out. But I still am a little bit guarded. They still have to clean things up before they would be considered, in my opinion, a much, much better team. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think I know the defense was banged up for the Rams too, so I'll take it with a grain of salt. But I also thought the mix between the run and the pass was the best it's been all year, and the O line looked good, and maybe that's because it was all working because they had that under route thing going. But it was really great to see. I think if they keep that up, I think they got a shot at running the table.
No, I would too. I would say if this continues to get better and they appreciate the phone call and they accentuate it and they continue to run the way they're running, I really like the fact that they mixed it up with some play action. Aaron Rodgers, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, when he sells it better than anybody. And he gets that misdirection going. You know, I mean, he gets defenses to bite and buys himself that extra second. And there's so much good that comes from that play action and being under center and getting guys moving downhill. And the offensive line has been playing better over the last few weeks as well. So, and if you look at the numbers running the football, what the Packers have been able to do versus, you know, just stepping back and sitting in shotgun and throwing it all over the damn place consistently, it's been so much better. And I don't necessarily say that it's been a come to Jesus meeting, but I would also effort to say that the results have been better. The movement of the ball has been better. The offense has been better. The time of possession has been better. I just think there's so much more there. And then you go back to special teams and Keyshawn Nixon being able to give them really good field position and excitement. I think that's been better too. So many different things have been better. You just hope that it's not too little too late when it comes to the Green Bay Packers. We got 2 more hours yet to go. Stay tuned. More of the Bill Michaels Show. It's all coming up next.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Packers are back to work today to start preparing for their Christmas Day matchup with Miami. The Dolphins have lost 3 straight under new coach Mike McDaniel, but are still in a fight for a playoff spot. Packers coach Matt LaFleur and McDaniel worked together in Washington and Atlanta earlier in their careers.
Mike and I are super tight. We got a great relationship. It's not one of those where we probably talk every week. I think both of us spend a good bit of time, and I know he is such a grinder, and he is a really early riser, at least when we were together and back in Houston, Washington, and Atlanta. I mean, he's in there like 4 a.m. just grinding tape.
The Packers got some good news yesterday on A.J. Dillon. The running back left the game early on Monday due to a head injury, but he passed through the concussion protocol that night and yesterday. It means he'll likely be good to go on Sunday in Miami. Turning to the Badgers, the early signing period began today. It's the first 8 players in the 2023 class can officially sign their letters of intent. Wisconsin started announcing the additions mid-morning. They include quarterback Cole LaCrue out of Colorado. Meanwhile, the current team continues to prep for next Tuesday's Guaranteed Rate Bowl against Oklahoma State in Phoenix. Still unclear who's going to start at quarterback for the Badgers. Either going to be senior Chase Wolf or freshman Miles Burkett.
Want to save even more at Fleet Farm? Well, now you can with Fleet Rewards. It's free to sign up, and there's no credit card required. Using Fleet Rewards is easy. Earn points every time you shop. Plus, get exclusive member offers, birthday and anniversary perks, free tire rotations, and more. Download the Fleet Farm app or create an account at fleetfarm.com/rewards to start earning points today. Fleet Farm, proudly serving the Midwest since 1955.
Well, the Bucks are in Cleveland. It's where they're going to take on the Cavs tonight. Milwaukee currently holds the top spot in the Eastern Conference. Cleveland is third. The Bucks won the first two matchups this season with the Cavs. Tip is at 6. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
And don't forget Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. They have right now, they're trying to keep the jingle in your pocket. And that is right now, no payments, no money down, no interest for a year. So you can get into 2024 before you even have to start thinking about it. But you can right now make your home more valuable. You can make it more economical, more beautiful in many different ways. And don't worry about installing year round and in the cold weather months because they seal off the room, open up the window, put in the new one, and you're done before you even know it. And it's like they were never there. And then they do that throughout the entire house. So that way you're not losing. It's not like busting out all your windows and the whole house is going to be cold. And it's going to take you 2 days to heat it back up. Nay. They get it done. They get it done quick, and they get it done right. And that is our friends at Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. But you can't do anything if you don't call and you don't email them. Go to Pella, P-E-L-L-A, PellaWI.com for that free in-home consultation, PellaWI.com, or call them 855-PELLA-WI. That's 855-PELLA-WI, and see for yourself. The question we had in the last hour was, with what we saw on Monday night with the Green Bay Packers and the way they played, is it sustainable? Could it get a little better every week? I'm not saying they have to play dramatically better, but could it get more sustainable? And could they be better and actually continue to win? Now, there are people that are the gloom's day, or maybe just hardcore, harsh reality people, realists that say there's no way in hell. But, if you eventually, you've got a decent offensive line. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination, but a decent offensive line that's been able to run the football as of late. A.J. Dillon has been cleared to come back. You got Patrick Taylor, who was a formidable backup, kind of a little bit slower version of Aaron Jones. But your defense, Devontae Wyatt, started to come on in this last game and looked pretty good. Maybe he's starting to get it. Maybe at least if they use the rotation between Kenny Clark and Wyatt and Slayton and Jerron Reed and Dean Lowry, maybe using those bodies, keeping them fresh, maybe they'll be okay. Preston Smith looked pretty good in this last game. Then again, it's against a banged up offensive line. So how good really are they? Kingsley Enagbari, say what you want about the 5th round draft choice, but he's certainly come on and made his name known. He's played better. Good special teamer. Quay Walker. I mean, he was right play. He had a hell of a first half of the game the other night. He seemed to be in the right place at the right time. Maybe he's getting it, and then there's obviously, guys like Adrian Amos, Rudy Ford, Rasul Douglas, Darnell Savage, Jair Alexander, your secondary. Now, after that, you start to get thin. I will admit, you start to get thin. If there's one area right now on this team that you cannot afford to lose, that's probably your secondary. Maybe you can get by with Tariq Carpenter, Dallin Levitt, but you're going to be pressing it if you think you're going to get any of those guys to really be up to speed and be a formidable secondary. But I think the number one thing that has to happen for the secondary, and maybe for that defense in general, is just keep tackling the way they did on Monday night. At least they were more sure of tackling than anything. And like I said, maybe it's just a pep in the step. Maybe they just get there a split second sooner, a quarter second sooner, a half second sooner. Instead of it being an arm tackle, it's a shoulder tackle. And maybe things just get a little bit differently just because there's a little belief behind the walls at 1265. We'll see. 877-867-1670. There's a lot of things that, and going back to even Ben's hitting me up saying, what from the other night is sustainable. And when you ask yourself, what can they do better? First of all, I think the fact that they've used play action offensively, they've mixed it up more. They've really become, I don't want to say reliant, but really become better, good, more committed to running the football. I'm not always in agreement of stretch plays and such, but they become better at running the football. Okay. Secondarily, getting Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs in the same field at the same time. I think both you have to account for. Randall Cobb has had, like I said, time and again, he's had a pretty good season. Yeah, he was banged up, which always happens, but he's had a pretty good season. And Lazard just needs to be Lazard, be sustainable. That's it. Just be a guy that can be there, and you're able to hit them and move the chains. But I think the biggest thing that has to get better, in just my opinion, is quarterback play. And I know that doesn't necessarily sound right because Aaron Rodgers coming off a back-to-back MVP for performances and such, but he's so used to doing it a certain way. It's downfield. It's the matchup. I'm going for it. And instead, at times, much like the interception to Lazard the other night, sometimes if Aaron Rodgers kind of retrains the brain and says, you know what, I don't have Jordy, I don't have Devontae, I don't have James, I don't have Greg, as the way he used to be, I don't have Donald, I don't have that. If he says, I'm just going to take what they give me, a lot of defenses will give you a lot. We know that, right? And then every now and then you get over the top with Christian or whoever else happens to get open. And then you take those shots. But we've seen a lot this season where it's just hit the open man, move the sticks, continue a drive, and they choose not to do it. I think part of it is just the quarterback play is going to get better, has to get better, right? And we've said it all along. If this team's going to have a legitimate shot, it's got to be Aaron Rodgers that's going to lead them. The defense can do what the defense does. They can play aggressive. They can blitz. They can move up and not give such a large cushion. Those are simple things to do. But to me, it's the decision-making of the quarterback. If he just takes what's given, moves the sticks, lives to fight another day, and instead of getting a 50-yard, touchdown pass, stack 50 yards in 5 different plays. Stack 50 yards in 12 different plays. You're still moving the chains. You're eating up clock. You're keeping your defense on the sideline. You're scoring points. To me, and the other thing is better in the red zone. Better in the red zone. But it has been a really pleasant surprise to see Keyshawn Nixon be able to do what he's doing in the return game. And special teams have not given, knock on wood, have not given away a game. I think there's a lot of things that are pretty good right now. Now, as others have pointed out, such as Finn's fan, forget about it. Packers are done this week. Finn's up. And I've seen quite a few people that have said, what do they run into this team? Wait till they run into this Miami team. Wait till they run into a new and improved Tua. Wait till they run into, what they have over there in Miami, the ability for them to move the football with Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. Wait till Raheem Mostert starts running all over them the way he did for San Francisco years ago, and he's still running in that game. Mostert had a huge game against this team. They've upgraded their offensive line. They've been so much better. When they picked up Armstead and they got him from New Orleans, and he's been an anchor over there at that left tackle position. Obviously, it all starts with Connor Williams up front as their center in the trenches. So they've been better. But they're a little bit banged up. They're banged up in their secondary right now. Keon Crossan, their corner has been banged up. Eric Rowe's been banged up. Their linebacker, Jerome Baker, I believe, is banged up as well. They've had some issues. So, maybe they're able to get some things done. We'll wait and see. But it is a grouping of weapons. And I think more so than just being able to cover Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, it's going to be to whatever it is you're going to do, you're going to have to dial it up against Tua and get him out of sorts, make him throw, make him make mistakes, and maybe get a turnover or two and not turn the ball over. And they still have a legitimate shot at winning. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. Give us a shout because I'd love to hear from you. 877-867-1670. The Cheddar Ball says, yep, and they couldn't score 30 against a terrible Rams team. Slim hopes for the playoffs, but crazier things have happened. But they could have scored. That's just it. They could have scored. They were driving when Aaron Rodgers threw the pick, and they could have scored 30 had they actually punched it in at the end. And there was another drive that they let get through their fingers. I think it was more the eluding of play calling than anything. And in the second half, the Packers could have actually continued to drive there too, but they could have scored 30. They chose to take a knee with a couple of minutes left, but they were right there. I mean, they could have punched it in if they wanted to. And had, like I said, now granted, he threw the interception, but it was not. When I talk about certain turnovers, there's certain turnovers that are caused because of, okay? When you hit Baker Mayfield as he's throwing the football and it floats into Rasul Douglas's arms, that is a defensive play that made you turn the ball over. Rodgers threw a bad pass. It was just a really errant pass because he thought that Allen Lazard was going to do something. So the only real turnover due to defense that they had was the Aaron Jones fumble. Got punched out. Good play by the defense. But Rodgers, if he doesn't throw that errant pass, if he hits Allen Lazard, moves the sticks and continues on, I bet you they score again there too. You know? 877-867-1670. Dave says, I don't know how much better you want Rodgers to play. He was 22 out of 30 with 2 or 3 throwaways. Okay. And what I'm talking about, Dave, what I was explaining was if he continues to play that way and takes what the defense gives him, the errant pass, the turnover, not only was it an incomplete pass, but it was a turnover. And it was due to strictly a communication issue. It wasn't because the defense forced him to do something. He wasn't under duress. He didn't just toss it up. None of that. And he needs to be almost perfect. He has had an inordinate amount of turnovers this year. The last time he's had 10 or more was go all the way back to 2010. It's been almost 13 years since we've seen him with this many turnovers. So one game, 22 out of 30, does not a season make. And it's been a season of consistency where he has turned the ball over. And we talked about it in the Chicago game when he threw one away, when he had a wide open Randall Cobb. We talked about it the other night when he had a wide open Allen Lazard. He's always looking for more if he just takes what's given to him at times. Not all the time, but if you just take what's given to you. Because again, Greg, Devontae, Jordy, they're not walking through that door. Just take and play within the realm of what it is you have as weaponry. There are times you expect more, but there are some times in the game that it's like, don't do that. Move the sticks, pick up a first down, continue to do what you do. 877-867-1670. Agree or disagree? Is this in any way sustainable for the Packers where they're at right now? This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at WisHD.com. That's HD. Harley lover in your life. That's a last-minute gift idea of any type. Stop into Wisconsin Harley-Davidson. Go to wishd.com to see all that it is they have to offer. But better yet, Highway 67, Oconomowoc, right between Milwaukee and Madison. They have great lineup of motor clothes, parts, accessories, leathers. They have a clearance room, big clearance room with all kinds of stuff in the back. So if you're looking for anything for the Harley lover on your gift list, stop in and tell them we said hi. More of the Bill Michaels Show next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Ho, ho, ho! I need a window.
Baby, it's cold outside.
So where do I go? Ho, ho.
Come on, Santa. Go to Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. Now is the time to replace your leaky windows and doors. You and Mrs. Claus can get your new windows while putting no money down, no payments, and no interest for up to 24 months. Unwrap this gift now, but pay for it 2 years later.
More jingle that stays in my pocket.
That's right, Santa. Plus, Plus, our elves install year-round and in as little as 1 day. Pella offers lines in luxurious wood to fiberglass and vinyl.
Why not make a New Year's resolution today?
That's the spirit, Santa.
Hella no, pay later.
Absolutely. Put no money down, no payments, and no interest for up to 24 months. But you have to hurry. Offer ends December 31st. Schedule your free consultation today at PellaWI.com.
True, restricted license for details.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
That's 414-455-4451. And if you're in Illinois, call them because they can tell you the location nearest you. If you're right here in Milwaukee, there's one here in Milwaukee. If you're in Sheboygan, you're between Green Bay and Milwaukee. They have locations in both. If you got ED, low T, if you're looking to lose some weight, just feel better, look better, they can help you out. Why not make 2023 the year of you, a new you with new mail? Go 414-455-4451. Can't do anything if you don't call. Again, 414-455-4451. Let's do this. I want to get back to the phone calls and just talk about whether or not you see anything sustainable anything sustainable that the Packers did the other night or in the last couple of games that gives you insight for hope? 877-867-1670. Real quick, I want, before we get back into the phone. Phones are wide open, by the way. Before we get back into the phones, this is from Chris. Chris says, while I see things have gotten better, I don't think things have gotten great. I think the Packers are an average to a below average team at best, which is perplexing because at the beginning of the season, we thought they had a load of talent. So I ask you this, has the coaching gotten better? And is the coaching more sustainable? Because we know what the talent level is now. That's from Chris. That's a great question because we all believed the defense would be a lot better at the beginning of the season, right? We all did. We all bought in. And it hasn't been. But here's something to think about. And going back to Cheddar Balls who said, well, they couldn't score 30 on, one of the worst teams in the National Football League. Think about this for a minute, though. They are sixth best in scoring over the last, I think it's 4 or 5 weeks. They have gotten better. They're the sixth best scoring offense over the last, I think it's 5 weeks now. So when you think about that, you're like, okay, well, maybe there is a trend there. And that's the reason Aaron Rodgers, when he was on McAfee, said, yeah, things are getting better. Things are getting better. And sometimes you hear him talk and you're like, maybe he's just saying things to, blow smoke or try to pep guys up outside of the locker room. But no, statistically, they are better. They are getting better. Remember, for a long time, they were like the 21st, 22nd scoring offense in the National Football League. And they've gotten steadily better as the season is drawn on. So when you look at the offense, when you look at the ability to move the football, the ability to score, they have gotten better. The Packers went from, I think at one point they were 20th or something like that, or 18th, and then they had all dropped all the way down. They were 7th or 28th in the league. They are averaging 18.3 points per game. And over the last few weeks, they've risen at almost 2 points per game on average, but they have been better specifically over the last 4 or 5 weeks. I take that back. Last week, prior to the game on Monday night, they were ranked 6th over the last 4 weeks. They're now 8th over the last 5 weeks. But they still put up 24. So think about that. 877-867-1670. You want to hit us up, do it. Let's go back to Hector listening to us on Alaska. Hector, how you doing, man? What's going on?
Hey, Bill. Doing good today. I work for FedEx, so I'm out delivering hits. So.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Just figured I'd chime in here quick. That Finns fan is real confident coming out. They're on a 3-game losing streak right now.
Right.
And other than the last game that they played against the Bills was like a 3-point loss. Every other time that the Dolphins have lost this year, they've lost.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like a close game. And it's all about the press coverage up against those fast receivers and a little bit of pressure. Tua is still young. He's still developing. Yeah, he's doing good this year, but he's no, Joe Montana, or he's not at the top of his game. He's still developing. So I think it's going to be a closer game than expected as long as Joe Barry can call somewhat of an okay defensive scheme like he did this past week. But I was going to say, and you just touched on it, statistically, they're way better than they were even just a couple of weeks ago. And if you can keep A.J. Dillon running how he has been, like, how can you stop that, man? That's scary with him coming through the holes like that. So I think they got a recipe for success. And the next couple games that they have, each of those teams they've played before. You can look back at the season and they each have like 1 or 2 games where they've just gotten blown out. So you don't have to completely change your scheme for each of them now that they have somewhat of a foundation, it seems like. So that's all I got.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it. Stay safe out there. It's going to be getting crazy on you. So hang in there. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. You want to find us, feel free. Again, 877-867-1670. Going back to week 9, the Packers were averaging 18.2 points per game through the first 9 weeks of the season. That's from Jesse. Jesse, appreciate it. 877-867-1670. Who else do we have here? This is from Hector. No, I already read that one. I'm sorry. Paul says, hey, Bill, love the program. Love the picture of you and Mike at Lambeau Field. You guys have been doing it great for a long, long time. I think the Packers have gotten better offensively. It's whether or not the defense can hold a team in pressure-cooked moments. This team has not been able to get off the field consistently and has given up far too many yards late in ball games. Late first-half drives, late second-half drives have done this team in. The defense sucks, and I hope to God that even if we do win out, they still fire Joe Barry. It should not save his job. That I agree with. 100%. I still think regardless of what happens this season, I don't care if now, again, if this team all of a sudden they start shutting teams out and then the guys come out and say, no. Joe B, as they call him, Joe B suddenly taught it right, or we started understanding what was going on or what have you. Okay. But I still hope that it doesn't save Joe Barry's job. I'm sorry. I just, I think he's kind of burned that bridge and needs to go. Just my opinion. I can't see it, hanging on to anything. You know what I mean? I don't want to see Joe Barry stick around. Okay, so going back, this is from Casey. Casey said, the Packers were averaging 18.3 points per game over the first 9 weeks of the season. Over the last 5, they're averaging 26.6 points per game. You take away the 17-point game from a few weeks ago, and they're even better than that. They could have scored 30 this past week, although they decided to take a knee at the goal line. Otherwise, that number would even go up from there. This team has been good offensively. People just aren't noticing it. They've been more committed to the run game, too. So, that's a hell of a jump. Because if you go back, okay, if they were over the last 5 weeks, say, if you were on average with that pretty much all season, you would be 6th in the NFL. You would be behind Kansas City, Philadelphia, Dallas, Buffalo, and you'd be right there in between Buffalo and Cincinnati. Buffalo averages 27.5 points per game on average. Cincinnati averages 26.4 points per game on average. So if the Packers, with what they've been doing over the last 5 weeks, were able to sustain that throughout a season, that's where they would be. They would be in the top 5 in scoring. That's the kind of number they've been putting up. Dolphins sitting right now 24.6 points per game. The Dolphins have 26.6 points per game. And over the last 3 games, they scored 29 against the Bills. Prior to that, though, they put up 17 against the Chargers and 17 against the 49ers. They struggled. They got beat 33-17, 23-17, and 32-29. Prior to that, though, the 4 games prior, they beat the Lions 31-27, beat the Bears 35-32, beat the Browns 39-17, and then the Texans 30-15. But that's the Texans, that's the Browns, that's the Bears. The 31 points they put on the Lions, that's right about the time the Lions started to get hot, and then they struggled with the Steelers, winning that game 16-10. Prior to that, they lost 3 straight, 15, 17, and 16 points for the point. 47 Jets in 24-16, they lost against the Vikings. So they have been, as the caller put it, when they lose, they lose. When they win, they can put up 30-plus points per game. 100%. Miami is going to be a playoff game. 100% agree with that sentiment. This portion of the program, by the way, brought to you by our friends at Forgotten Fire Winery. Forgotten Fire in Peshtigo, Wisconsin is the winery, but you can find them in local grocery stores, liquor stores, wine stores. Ask for it not by name. That is ForgottenFireWinery.com. That is ForgottenFireWinery.com. Great stuff. I enjoy the Moscatos. Their ciders are great. They've got an award-winning Merlot, but if you're looking for wine of any type, go local. That is our friends at ForgottenFireWinery.com.
Ready? This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
What do you get the meat lover, the grilling lover in your life this holiday season? How about a gift subscription to Scholze Family Beef? Go to ScholzeFamilyBeef.com.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
877-867-1670. What is sustainable about this team? Douglas writes, hey, Unit, I love the fact that the offense has been better. If we can just get the defense up to the same level, I think this team has a legitimate shot. Maybe this team is morphing into the team we thought it should be at the beginning of the season. They're just doing it at the end of the season. I agree with you. Is it too little, too late? Most likely. But at least at this point, they are giving us hope. Jeff says, I think the offense is still light years away from where it needs to be. They don't have the legitimate downfield threat. Christian Watson is still learning. I believe he's good, and I believe he will be a very good receiver. At least that's what he has shown. But I still think he is not there yet. That's from Jeff. What else do we have here for you real quick? No, I'm not going to do that. It's all Dolphins all the time. It talks about Tua being great, and he's on the cusp of being a MVP. No, he's not. He's not an MVP.
Oh, Bill, have you heard of Tuanon?
No, God, no.
It's the dark community of Dolphins fans that bring up statistics that only Tua's done, therefore showing that he is the greatest quarterback ever.
Okay.
Tuanon.
There you go. It's funny how you can bring that up, but yet nobody's really saying Tua's in the MVP for conversation.
I mean, he was until he started stinking. Briefly.
Joseph says, the last time I thought the Dolphins were good, Star Wars was the hit. Saturday Night Fever was pretty good, and so was the Bad News Bears. They were all playing at the cinema at the same time. Until then, they have been a train wreck. No, Dan Marino actually had some good days, and they actually had a little bit of excitement not that long ago in Miami, but they have been bad for a long time. I agree with you. Miami has not really been Miami since going back to the Don Shula days. Let's be honest. Not consistently. Really? That's what we had to go back to? Star Wars, Saturday Night Fever, Charlie Brown, and Bad News Bears? Man, Ben, you weren't even born then.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it goes back to the original Star Wars. Andy says, all this talk has me fired up, but I got to live in reality. I hate to say it, but I think the Packers season comes to an end this Sunday. While I want to see the Packers win, my family and I will be huddled around presents and the tube. I still don't think it happens, but it would be a great Christmas gift if Aaron Rodgers could pull one out of his ass, play extremely well, not have bad reads, and win this game. I would agree with you. Oh, my goodness. Chuck says, so many people keep saying that they could have scored 35 points or they should have scored or a few more turnovers and things like that. The fact remains that they didn't until they start doing things they could have done. They will remain a mediocre team. Well, okay, Chuck, the point was they could have scored 30. They took a knee. They took a knee to end the game. Otherwise, they would have. So it's not like they got stopped. Okay, take the turnover out of it. They still could have scored 30. They didn't because they chose not to. My point is they chose not to. Rodgers made an ill-advised, just horrifically bad pass. What I said was teams didn't stop them. They stopped themselves. You know what I mean? It's not like the Packers had 4 shots at the end zone and couldn't punch it in. That's not that's a good defense that shut them down. My point is they took a knee. Rodgers has had some ill-advised passes and turned the ball over an inordinate amount of times this year. Just kind of throwing it up because what the hell, right? So I agree with you. But the facts are the facts. Over the last 5 games, they're scoring on average 26.6 points per game, which would make them 5th best in the National Football League. They're 8th best over the 5-week period. That's a fact. They were averaging 18.3 points per game prior to. So they have gotten better. That's undeniable. And that puts them in the top 10, the top third of the league. So that is not mediocre. What is mediocre is the defense has had a propensity to just forget how to tackle, to play way off the ball, to give up first downs like they're Pez out of a Pez dispenser. They have lived by death by 1,000 cuts now through games they have lost. But in the last couple of games, they have played better. Granted, they're against terrible teams. I 100% agree with that. But the rest of that's undeniable. You know what I mean? Dwayne says, why did teams go away from a stud blocking fullback? They replaced him. They replaced him with a tight end. They replaced him with another wideout. They replaced it. They don't feel it's a necessary thing. If you got a tight end that can give you a couple of chip blocks and still get out in space for a pass, for play action. But the only time you see any type of fullback used in the National Football League anymore is usually goal line, when you need that extra blocker, that extra beef. It's the only time you see it anymore. That's it. Most of the time, though, fullbacks, they have excuse me, morphed into tight end play more so than anything.
I've been trying to ask that all season, Bill.
What? Why
Packers
don't they
struggle?
Yeah,
because they don't have a fullback.
Well, they do though. Right.
All the Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, you don't see John Kuhn anymore. He's not. They don't have that guy. Not many teams do. They've replaced all of that. They have gone to, others in regards to, like I said, an extra wideout or a tight end that they can keep as a out into to catch passes. They're multi-versatile weapons. So that's the reason. Not necessarily do I agree with it, but that's the reason. And if they split out a tight end or they split out an extra wideout, that's an extra defender that has to go out with them, which takes another guy out of the box. So that's part of the reason they do it. 877-867-1670. Hit us up. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at best Italian food you're ever going to stick in your grill. Sandro, I was just texting back and forth with Gino yesterday. They got a veterans event coming up. I'm going to give you some more details on. But they're going to have it's basically they're supporting a group of people that are going to sleep out in the cold in February to raise awareness for homeless vets. And he said, look, we support it. Can you give it some love? And I said I would. So I'm going to give you some details when we come back. But you want a great Italian food and a terrific group of people. That is our friends at Calderon Club in San Giorgio on Old World 3rd Street, downtown Milwaukee, right across the street from the Hyatt. They pair up some of the specials with cider boys. They love you to come in, try it. Spaghetti and meatballs, lasagna. The eggplant is fantastic as an appetizer. It is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And don't forget about the vanilla bean cheesecake afterwards. But everything in between is just absolutely awesome. Go over to San Giorgio, the authentic Napolitana Pizzeria. The pizzas are handmade right there in front of you. They're great place to go. Either place is fantastic. Old World 3rd Street, downtown, right across the street from the Hyatt. That's San Giorgio and Calderon Club. You can't go wrong. They pair it up with our friends up in Point, and that is Cider Boys. Great stuff on both accord.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Wisconsin isn't snobby, snooty, or pretentious. It's Midwestern charm at its finest. And that's exactly what Forgotten Fire Winery in Peshtigo is all about. Fun in a bottle without the attitude. You can find their full wine and cider lineup in their tasting room or in liquor and grocery stores throughout the state. The winery is a great place to get away. For wine and cider tastings, great live music, and private events all year long. Remember, any time is a great time for Forgotten Fire wines and ciders. Wisconsin wine made from Wisconsin people.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Now, in Green Bay, here's Mike Clemens.
The Packers have a late afternoon practice as they head this weekend to Miami to face the Dolphins. The team got some good news that running back A.J. Dillon did not suffer a concussion on Monday night against the Rams, so he's cleared to play this weekend. Packers rookie receiver Christian Watson talked about what it was like being covered by the Rams' trash-talking defensive back Jalen Ramsey.
I think it was a good battle. Any opportunity for me to go up against a corner of his caliber and obviously just work on my technique, against his, that's exactly what I'm playing at this level for, to compete and, to challenge guys. And obviously, he's a guy. So, it was a great battle.
Keyshawn Nixon had another good week as the kick returner and apparently has been lobbying to get some snaps in as the slot receiver on offense. Head coach Matt LaFleur.
No, I know. He's been talking to you, though, because he's been talking to me every day about that. So he saw that screen pass that New England ran a couple of weeks ago where they threw it to their punt returner and he took it to the house. And so ever since then, I can go in there.
And Jair Alexander was asked after beating the Rams and facing the Dolphins next, what's his goal for this week?
One game at a time, one game at a time. 3 left, but one game at a time. That's the goal.
That's Packers defensive back Jair Alexander. In Green Bay, I'm Mike Clemens on the Bill Michaels Show.
Welcome back. Good to have you, our friends at the Social House, HAUS, reminding you all to have an incredible holiday season. And you spend time with friends, family, enjoy yourself. And then when you get back out, you need to go out and just get out and move around a little bit, maybe have some good food, a beverage, watch a game. Social House, HAUS on Lisbon Road, Menominee Falls. They're a place to come before, after, even during your New Year's Eve celebration as well. So don't forget about Social House, HAUS. You can follow them on Facebook, and they're on Lisbon Road in Menominee Falls. Kind of actually a little bit closer to Brookfield, but technically Menominee Falls. But stop in and tell them we said hi. Dan Della's got a great place here. They've expanded it. The parking lot's bigger, better, more parking, and the people there are just great. It's a really good neighborhood place to go, without a doubt. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. Jason says, hey, Bill, you know what I hate? I hate when Rodgers overthrows a Lazard receiver who is sitting in a pocket and what could have been maybe turned into a touchdown, but at the very least a first down. But then calls out Watson on TV by saying, run right routes, score touchdowns. How about throw right passes, score touchdowns? Why can't he be more humble and not be so quick to throw jabs at his players. Thanks.
It's literally one of the dumbest stories I've read.
Goes back to the hand signal story we talked about earlier this year, which is okay. Let me address your question over on the Bud Light live stream first. He has been more humble this year. He has been. He's been more humble than in years past. He has talked more about this was on me. I did this. It starts with me. I've always said, if you're pointing out your own flaws, it's no big deal. Now, some people like to hear quarterbacks just say it's on me. I got to play better and leave everybody else out of it. Rodgers has traditionally not done that, but on the other hand, you ask a question and look for honest answers, and sometimes we don't like the answers, but the answers are real. This guy ran a bad route. This guy did this. This guy did that. I did this. I did that. When all we want to hear is, it's on me. It starts with me. It ends with me. I have to be better. I have to play better. I'm the reigning MVP. I got to do this. I got to do that. That's what we want to hear. But we ask a question. We get an honest answer. If a guy ran a wrong route, he ran a wrong route, But I agree with you. I would look, because Rodgers the other night said, well, he thought I was going to throw him, throw him into the position where I thought I was going to throw him downfield. What he could have said was, he sat in the open zone and I just thought he was going to continue on and I threw a bad pass. That's probably the better explanation. That's probably the better wording for it. But I agree with you. There's times where Rodgers comes off as it's never my fault. It's everybody else. And also don't forget, he has created that reputation. So even if he came out today and said, you know what, everything this season's pretty much been on me. Yeah, I should have been here. I should have done this. I should have done that. We would all say, now he's saying it. That's great. And then the very next time he says, yeah, Christian Watson ran, this route that he was supposed to go in instead of out. And we'd all say he never takes the blame. He has taken the blame this year. We have pointed that out specifically to say, look, he is taking blame. He has said this. It starts with him. But I agree with you. You'd like to just, when you ask an honest question, sometimes you're not really looking for an honest answer. You know what I mean? So I know. Going back to that quote that Rodgers just had that Ben played, there's been a lot of traction, I guess, on that story. Now, when we had Kaylin, what was her first name, Ben?
Kaylin Collar, I believe.
Keller,
I will
yeah,
confirm.
Yeah, Kaylin. So when we had Kaylin, who wrote for The Athletic, wrote the story, she was very honest. She said, look, this is not a rip piece on Rodgers. And I wonder if Rodgers read the whole thing. I would assume he did, but I don't know. This is not a rip piece. This is basically, this is what he does. This is what he kind of demands. This is what other guys talked about. It's not like Rodgers said, that's the biggest nothing, like it never happened. Right? He never said that. Because everybody, even Randall Cobb in that piece admitted to it. So, yeah, this is what you do. But you got to get on his level. And, as Rodgers said, it's the biggest story about nothing and, whatever. But one thing in that story he never addressed. He never addressed when guys feel that he's unapproachable. When guys feel like, yeah, you can't, I feel intimidated. I can't talk to this guy. He didn't address, what he addressed was, oh God, everybody does it. Yeah, we talk about hand signals. I've used some of the old ones. I've used some of the new ones. I've mixed it. Okay. But it wasn't just about that. It was also a story of, if they don't get these signals right, if they don't learn them all, if they don't understand everything, they seem to fall into your doghouse. That was part of the story. And that was never addressed. That was never addressed. That was never discussed. Because that's the way some of these guys feel. Go ahead, Ben.
We could play it again. We talked about it yesterday. As I've reviewed the whole interview with McAfee, it really just felt like he was trying to discredit Kaylin and the entire story.
Right.
Where, as she described, it can't be a hit piece if nobody's anonymous. It was literally all your current and former players talking about things that happened, which inherently is it's relevant information.
He was trying to I agree with you. He was trying to make it sound like that was a completely farce piece. And it's like, no, wait a minute. Everybody in this thing is quoted. Nobody hid from anything. Even Randall Cobb is quoted in this. Everybody knew what she was talking about. But, and maybe he just read the headline about the death stare. Maybe he just said, that's a joke. Well, maybe he didn't read the whole thing. I don't know. We got another hour yet to go. Stay tuned. A whole lot more of the Bill Michaels Show. It's coming up, and it's coming up right after this. kinds of stuff that should be done. People just look at Brady, and he's the measuring stick by which every quarterback is measured. And you should be fiery, but yet not petulant. You should be accountable, but humble. You should be, putting the entire team up at your house to get on the same page. I mean, when you want somebody to come and play football with you as a free agent, I mean, it's just all these different things Brady has set the bar for so incredibly high. And then obviously championships have come along with that. And he's kind of ruined it for, any quarterback in modern times until his memory fades. And the fact that he's still playing and playing at a pretty decent level. This year's obviously been a somewhat of a train wreck of a year, but at a pretty decent level. 877-867-1670. Here's one thing. I'm sitting here in studio and I look up, and today is National Signing Day. And I cannot believe that we sit here and watch people, high schoolers, announce where they're going to go. And it's great for some of these high schools. They put all their logos all over everything and such. And, but they're putting on hats, and guys are going to Alabama or Auburn or Florida, Ohio State, and they got all these different logos up, and then they pull out the ball caps and everybody claps, and that's it. That's the moment. Now, I would love to I would love to see ESPN go back and say, okay, these were the kids that we had featured on signing day. Where are they now? Go back 5 years. Where are they now? 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. Where are they now? And very few, I would assume, are making major level of impact on these national signing days. Because a lot of these guys, I see these names and I'm like, one guy every now and then will hit. But Ben, on these national signing days, when they put up these big displays and guys are sitting in front of microphones, and it's a major announcement for them. For the high school, I guess they're getting, especially if it's a private school, they're probably getting a few donations and some looks and national attention. But don't you want to see them go back and say, all these guys that were sitting there with the gold around their necks, and all these guys are sitting there in suits and this high-end deal, that when they put these hats on, then in 5 years, where are they?
The Athletic actually recently did a piece on that, on the number 1 overall recruit from 15 to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I want to go refine the article. It was very interesting. I think whether they're making an impact now, there's a difference between those making an impact in the NFL and those that go on to make a big impact in college. Because almost all the guys that you see on TV, on 24/7 Sports, which is the big recruiting site, they do YouTube Live all day. Right. The people you see committing on those shows, almost all of them go on to make big impacts in college because they go to the big schools. They're the highly touted guys. Like there's a reason that Georgia, you turn on the TV, they have a 6'8", 270-pound dude playing tight end. Like, there's a reason their teams are great. The NFL is kind of a different story.
Right.
So it's kind of hard. Like, and obviously some don't work out for whatever reason, but more so than not, like the fact these kids are at the top and highlighted by these recruiting services, like there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
They end up dominating the sport.
They, but you're right. They can dominate in college. I would love to know the percentage of guys that succeed and considered to be successful and or outstanding or mediocre or sub-mediocre. And then the guys that go on to the NFL that are big deal. Because that becomes extremely thin. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the exact, there are good articles written about why, and it's not an exact science, but there are 32 5-star kids per year. It is the 32 people that the recruiting services at a high school think are the most likely to be first-round draft picks. And then there are a lot more 4-stars, but there is a much, much higher level of 5-star kids even drafted to the NFL. So it does translate, but it's not 1-to-1. There's obviously a little more of a crapshoot there, but as time has gone on, there's been more and more accuracy with that.
I look at it as you're taking high school kids, you're somewhat exploiting them. And then what you're doing is you're putting the pressure on them that if they don't succeed, they will be considered failures the rest of their lives at high school. Because God knows, we all know the difference between you as an adult at 18 versus an adult at 21 versus an adult at 25 versus 30 versus 35 are drastically different. And at the age of 18, to be putting a hat on ESPN and have some success in college, yeah, you may walk away with an education and a degree, but you're expected to be an NFL player. Like, this is the beginning of your fandemonium in your career. And I've always said it's a ton of, I guess as a kid, I'd love the attention. Don't get me wrong, but it also comes with a ton of pressure. And if you don't succeed, and I'm talking beyond college, then it becomes a weight that you bear the rest of your life, because basically, unless you've got a ton of, injuries that have cost you your career, you're considered somewhat of a failure.
That's kind of why I think all the NIL stuff is very good. That it is somewhat of a crapshoot getting to the NFL and succeeding there, even getting a second contract in the league. And then you're only there for 3 or 4 years anyway. So the fact that they can cash in at this level, I think, is very positive.
See, what I want to see is, they say a 5-star player is more than 260% more likely to be drafted than a 4-star player, and a 4-star player more than 450% more likely to be drafted than a 3-year player. Or a 3-star player, and on and on. What I want to know is how many 5-star players were drafted and how many of them were actually successful. I don't want to know what the percentages are. I want to know, out of 500 guys that were 5 stars, go back 5 years and prior, 500 5-star players, how many of them were drafted? How many of them could we even recognize their name? That's what I want to know.
Should I pull up like the 2016 top recruits in the country?
Yeah, go ahead.
See which ones are up there.
Yeah.
Actually, it's funny. The number 1 that year was Rashawn Gary.
Okay.
So there's one. Dexter Lawrence. He went to Clemson.
Right.
He's making an impact. Shea Patterson, quarterback, went to Ole Miss. Then Michigan did not become much.
Nothing.
Jacob Eason, Georgia, made it to the league.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't really played. Isn't great.
Right.
Greg Little. No. Derek Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. Ed Oliver is in the NFL.
NFL.
Several people I haven't heard of. Nick Bosa.
Right. Nick Bosa is one. There you go. So you've already gone through. We've had 4 successes, and the rest of them have not been. Out of what, the 10 names, 12 names you've read off?
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, is the likelihood of you going on and being this big player, what your expectation is, it's a lot of pressure. And you're putting it on an 18-year-old. No, don't get me wrong. There are success stories, and it's wonderful, but I just look at it from a perspective of, I'm sitting here watching high school kids act like they're all that, and they're not, and they haven't arrived, and they haven't done anything that's going to venture forward into their life other than hopefully get an education, because out of what you've just named, we haven't even heard of half of these guys, but yet we're putting them on TV as the next coming. That's my point. And granted, like you said, some of these guys will hit. They've had it. They've got that ability, and they're more likely to be drafted. They're more likely to have success. But my whole point is, you're putting a ton of pressure on these guys, and if these guys don't hit, say Shea Patterson picked one of the top quarterbacks in the country, top 30 that year, and would we then consider him a failure? Sure, we would. He had some success at Michigan, but he's popular to Michigan people, I guess. But beyond that, it's like, you were a failure, dude. You sat there, you put the hat on, you had the TV cameras on you, you had the suit on, and you're doing your big moment and the whole thing. And what did you amount to? Hopefully you got an education, because football career-wise, nothing. So that's my point. That's my point.
I went through a couple years. It was about 10 or 11 of the 32 5-stars.
But I'll say this.
Became big NFL guys.
But I'll say this. Now with the NIL, now it does change things dollar-wise for these kids. With the NIL being a part of this, now it does change things, because now you're considered a 5-star recruit, and you're coming in, and supposedly being a savior and or an additive to the program that's going to take them to either another level or sustainability at a high level. And now there's money there. So that I will say it does change things to a certain extent. But I've been arguing this for a long time. It is a lot of pressure to be putting on high school people to say you have to be successful now because we put you on TV. It's a lot of pressure. It's great for you to be recognized, your friends and family, and it's kind of cool. Like I said, as a kid, I'd love it. But if it was my kid and I'm sitting there as a parent, I'd have to say, boy, I don't know if I would want my kid to be put under that kind of scrutiny and that kind of pressure. It's tough enough to go into a college and be a high end recruit anyway, much less now I've got my face and everything, my popularity splattered all over television. I'd rather just try to work myself into greatness rather than be told to everybody I'm great and then not live up to it. So let's do this. Quick break. More of the Bill Michaels Show next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
For the first time, whether it's Buzzard Billy's or the Starlight Lounge upstairs. So good stuff always. When somebody gets a hold of me and says, hey, I tried it, or I went back and used your name or told them we heard it here, or whatever, that's awesome. And Buzzard Billy stepped on board when we did, the motorcycle ride this year. And they said, hey, we'd love to be a part of it, love to be a part of the program. So thanks to them for supporting us, supporting veterans and such. Always appreciate that. And don't forget, whenever you're heading out to La Crosse, maybe you're out and about downtown, you're looking for a night out, maybe a good beverage, a meeting with friends, catering, whatever. Could check out our friends at Buzzard Billy's. Buzzard Billy's right there downtown La Crosse, and upstairs from Buzzard Billy's is the Starlight Lounge. And that place is just awesome within itself. So really, really good stuff from our friends at Buzzard Billy's and the Starlight Lounge just upstairs. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. This is from Chris, who said, I agree with you. My son was a pretty good athlete in high school. While he wasn't going to be one of the kids on TV, I don't think I would have allowed him. There was enough pressure from colleges coming after him to be great, and to be great almost immediately, that his friends began to buy into it. I could see his ego begin to swell. Didn't like it. I think it's a lot of pressure to put on young kids very early. If you want the TV and the glitz and the glam, make a name for yourself once you get into college, and therefore the NIL dollars will start to roll in. And I would tend to agree with that. But I've also heard from a few people that said, hey, if this was going on when I was in high school, I would be glad to be sitting in front of the cameras of ESPN as well. Like I said, for the kids, it's great. They love it. It's just what you don't see is the aftermath, the after effects of what the expectations are. I mean, I just remember, when I was in high school, friends of mine that either went to big colleges or friends that I had played with when I was in grade school that went on to other high schools. A couple of them had brothers. They went on to bigger colleges, or you thought they were going to be great, and then they didn't get the offers, or they get hurt or whatever. And then, you're always the guy that should have been, would have been, could have been, but never was. And now you're adding the National Signing Day television broadcast stigma to that. And it's just a ton of pressure. Some can handle it. Don't get me wrong. Some can handle it. Some can't. Some don't handle it very well. Ben, do you like to see the National Signing Day television broadcast? Other than the names that are going to the school that you like, does it really matter?
I think it's interesting because it dictates where the sport's going to be in 3 or 4 years. Where like Oregon has had an all-time day today. They flipped a bunch of guys and their class is up to like top 5 in Dan Lanning's first full session. Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting because 3 years from now, we'll look back when they're in the playoff and say, oh, that was a very seminal day in reaching that. As someone who follows the sport closely, I like it a lot. I mean, it kind of is what it is because it's a big business. Like the recruiting site and the following, then the fandom of it. There's a lot of business behind it. So it's something I don't think you could ever just take away because clearly they devote full days to do it.
It's only going to get bigger. What I'm saying is I've just never been a big fan of it because I think just from the human aspect of it, it puts a ton of pressure on the kids. For everything else, I agree with you. And now that you've got NIL dollars involved, it's only going to get bigger. It's only going to get bigger. It's the Pandora's box is open and it's only going to get bigger. That I agree with. So it's not going to, put it this way, it's not going to stop on our account or my account. But I ask you because you're of a different era. So it's something you kind of grew up with. I mean, they started doing this about 7, 8, 9 years ago, something like that. That ESPN started doing the productions of National Signing Day and football. And they don't do it for basketball or anything like that. Well, I'm talking for football. Because football drives the train. We all know that. So you don't mind it. You like this particular day. Would it matter if you didn't have the cameras on the kids?
Not really.
Right.
For someone like me, because I would follow it. I don't watch the broadcast, obviously. I'm here at work. But I follow the trackers of it. And mainly on Twitter, where you have the services tweeting out who's committing where.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, this used to happen months later.
Right.
Now it's the early signing day. This used to all happen in February. But all these kids end up enrolling early and getting in. I don't know. When it comes to pressure, I think pressure is going to happen no matter what when you go to those big schools and you have the recruiting ranking next to you.
No,
does going on TV add to it? 100%.
Yeah.
But I think more of the pressure just comes from the nature of the sport, the nature of the huge stage it's played on, and where the people end up going to school.
Chuck says, I find the National Signing Day broadcast about as interesting as a gender reveal.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. I like it for the information. That I like. But beyond that, it's like, whatever.
That's like someone telling me all the bowl games are meaningless. It's like, yeah, you could not like it, so don't watch it. No one's gonna.
Right.
What's the movie where you peel the eyelids back so they have to watch it? Clockwork Orange.
Timothy says, I enjoy National Signing Day to find out who Wisconsin's going to get, and I follow the signings on Twitter. See, I follow the information. You are correct. What I find is the hokiness of kids, families. It's like draft day. It's like this is their version of draft day. They're all sitting around tables at high schools and such, or sitting at home. It's like they're being drafted. And no, you're just choosing what school you're going to go to. And chances are, if the NIL dollars aren't there, you're going to transfer out of there anyway. So that's where we are today. But I agree with you. The NIL dollars will make a difference. That's going to start to change kind of the way this is viewed, National Signing Day. And we're not even fully vetted into the NIL dollars yet. Not even fully vetted into that. Let's see here. Antonio says, can you give us a list of what events are postponed tomorrow and Friday because of the weather? Antonio, it depends on where. I appreciate the fact that we are live and local, but we are based out of Milwaukee. And the signal comes out of Madison. Ben is in Madison, and we're sitting here in portions of the state. I know that a lot of stuff. I just saw a tweet that went by that said that Janesville is talking about snow emergencies and such. Milwaukee's bracing for it. I saw some stuff on the Dells that just passed by a little while ago in Twitter that I follow, because I try to follow a lot of different stuff on Twitter and Facebook that's local. And I just saw something pass by on that. So I guess it just depends on where you're at. But to answer your question is a broad stroke. No, I don't have anything specific that has been canceled. I just think a lot of events are being canceled. I know some basketball games are being canceled collegiately. I know some women's basketball has been canceled in Milwaukee specifically. I think it was UWM. That's been canceled. And it's not just being able to play in the city. It's being able to get flights in and out or transportation in and out of the state of Wisconsin and around the area. So, but beyond that, I wish I could give you a little bit more. I really do. I just don't have it. You know, got one here that says it's already snowing in Taylor County, Wisconsin. And I am going to be completely ignorant. I'm not quite sure where Taylor County is. You can tell me, or I'm going to have to Google it, I guess. But Taylor County, Wisconsin. I'm not quite sure where that's. Down by Abbotsford, Rib Lake, Ladysmith, all in that area. Taylor County is. Taylor County has Medford. So it's northwest of, say, Wausau, north of Abbotsford. Okay, gotcha. Taylor County. I had to really look because that was one that got me. Just west of Merrill and Tomahawk and such. Gotcha. 877-867-1670. 877-867-1670. This is from Jake, who says, hey, I'm sitting in downtown Black River Falls. Can you tell me if the local gas station is open? Thank you very much. I needed that. That's good. I love Black River Falls, though. Love that area. Can you tell me if the gas station is open? They have just one? I think Black River Falls is a little bit bigger than that. I think they got a few gas stations there, if I'm not mistaken. But because I've actually been through the area. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Black River Falls, I was in Black River Falls traveling back. I was coming down 94, and I think it was actually bad weather. It was like 3 years ago. And if I'm not mistaken, it's the Black River Falls. It's Comfort Inn that I stayed at overnight. I stayed at a Comfort Inn there because the weather was crappy. And if I'm not mistaken, it's right off the highway. Correct me if I'm wrong in Black River Falls, but I think there is. I think it's a Comfort Inn. 877-867-1670. Hit us up. Just weirdness. Hey, Ben, so Pat McAfee was reading the article from The Athletic.
Yeah, he did a whole segment on it.
And what was the consensus coming out of
I was watching
the hand signal thing?
I was watching some of it. I think most of their consensus was this is the case everywhere across the NFL, which I think there is some truth to that. Definitely when you talk about a Rodgers or a Peyton Manning or a Brady, and they're vets and they've done it, they probably carry themselves a similar way.
Right.
But the biggest part was when he was talking with Aaron about it yesterday, he started going on about all these anonymous sources and how it was out to get Aaron, which clearly was not the case. And he was corrected. So he made sure to correct that today. Because I don't think he read the piece before yesterday.
No, I don't think
At
so
all.
either. And it was, it wasn't. And you're right. It was not a hit piece on Aaron Rodgers. And Kalen was very specific in saying that that's not what this was. This was just an interesting insight behind the doors of 1265 to know what it's like to have some of these young receivers go through kind of the quarterback to wide receiver camp on a daily basis or a weekly basis, to know what it's like, to know what it is that's expected of you. And one thing that came out of it was some guys that don't get it and or fail, you find yourself in the Aaron Rodgers. Nothing more than that. So if you want to take it as a hit piece, I guess you could, but that's not the way it's meant to be. And like she said, everybody that spoke in that piece was quoted. They were on the record. They knew that it was going to be read, and they knew that it was going to be seen. They didn't have any problem talking about it. Some past, some present, which is the best part about it. So the whole thing about it being a complete joke or whatever it is, he said, that's kind of condescending, I guess, might be the best way to put it. And that's one of the things that people tend to get upset with, that it turns people off to Rodgers. It's like, just, hey, say this is what it is, instead of ripping everybody that has an opinion about you. Let's do this. We'll break away. We'll come back. We'll continue on. Hey, our friends at Kane and Kane Jewelers, they are in West Bend. Andy Kane and the family up there. First of all, have you ever wanted to be a part of the Rock Star team, and Rock being the diamond team? They are looking for a part-timer if you have an interest. However, if you still have somebody to buy for, or you maybe want to trade some stuff in, or you want to go in and you're getting ready for that special day, so to speak, and you want your own kind of viewing of different rings or bracelets or necklaces or whatever, Kane and Kane Jewelers, let them rock your world. Located in West Bend, go to Kane, K-O-E-H-N, KaneJewelry.com. That's KaneJewelry.com. There's a new version of the Buy Like a Guy podcast up as well that Andy just put out. So if you haven't seen it, you can check that out. But go to Kane, K-O-E-H-N, KaneJewelry.com. But I tell you, it's worth the trip to go to West Bend and check out the Hearts on Fire diamonds and everything else it is they have to offer. Andy Kane and his staff, great people. That is Kane and Kane Jewelers in West Bend.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Franklin, Wisconsin, luxgolfbays.com. That's luxgolfbays.com. They have 57 golf bays. They're heated. They're year-round. Ben, have you ever done the Lux Golf?
No, I've not.
It's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing. Measures your shot, measures the distance, the fade, the hook, the slice, whatever it happens to be. It's got everything it can do for you. And you don't even have to bend over to put the ball on the tee. That's the best part about it. You just wave your club. Club just senses, or the machine senses it, and the ball pops out. Oh, it's awesome. And then you go out and you play some golf and you drink beer. That's the best way to go. Good stuff from our friends at Lux Golf Base. Don't forget, they still all the way it comes back again tomorrow. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the last few shots at going to the Enchanted North Pole. If you're looking for something to do, and it's going to be the wintry wonderland, because if you're going to go see Santa, what better way to do it than when you got the North Pole storm going on? You got Lux Golf Bays, the Enchanted North Pole. It's all happening down in Franklin, Wisconsin. If you live in that area, just trek on over. Be safe, but trek on over, see Santa. They have hot chocolate. They have Santa, Mrs. Claus over there. They're doing all kinds of things with the elves. So good stuff. You can even get a degree from Elf University over there. It's not a bad way to go. I don't necessarily look like an elf, but I could maybe do that. Lux Golf Bays. Go to luxgolfbays.com, located Franklin, Wisconsin, which is where you can find it. This is from Thomas, who says, haven't we been able to listen to the whole show today, but have you commented on Graham Mertz reneging on Kentucky and now going to Florida? That's Oshkosh Tom, who's living right now in Englewood, Florida. I did not. Did you see that, Ben?
He was never committed to Kentucky. Someone just reported it.
Reported
It wasn't
that he
true.
was. Okay.
Yeah, so Devin Leary went there, former NC State guy, who's quite good. And then Mertz, reportedly, he is not committed yet, is going to Kentucky. That was reported today.
That was reported today. But now he's going to Florida, or is he reneging on Kentucky?
Florida. I'm sorry. That's what I mean.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, there you go. So there you have it. 877-867-1670. This is from Doc. Doc says, hey, unit, love the program. Can't wait for the snow to come in full force. We'll finally have enough snowpack up here in the Northwoods to be able to snowmobile. I'd like to invite you guys up at some point, maybe rent some snowmobiles and hit bars here in the Northwoods. I got a friend of mine who lives up there and has snowmobiles. I have never gone snowmobiling in the Northwoods. We were just talking about that this past weekend. How probably not going to have a deep Packers postseason run. And once we get back in February, after Super Bowl, then there's probably going to be a little downtime. So I'd love to do that. I've never done it. I haven't gone snowmobiling since I was probably 14 years old. And my dad's buddy, who was a doctor, he had 2 old AMF snowmobiles going back to the day of probably about 1983-ish. And he had you don't even want to call it a summer home. It was basically a double wide on a foundation by a lake. It was nicer than what all the other little cabins were up there, and they had a huge, what was an old farmer's field, acres and acres and acres of an old farmer's field that they had not paved over, but let grass grow. And that was kind of like the open playgrounds and stuff for all the people in this neighborhood at this lake community. And that's where we used to go snowmobiling. But that was the last time I was on a snowmobile. And they have changed so much. I mean, so much over the years. We don't even have a power sports company on our station as a sponsor. We should probably get one of those too. But Ben, you a snowmobiler?
No, I actually never have.
Never have.
I'm a skier.
Snow ski,
but
yeah.
I've not done motorized snow sports.
I have not done that. My buddy, Stenny, he's got a house up north. My buddy Dave, who used to be with Beechwood and MK Brewing, he's got a house up north, and they all go. Howie, who owns Badger Railing, they all live in that area up there. They all go snowmobiling. They love it. They go snowmobiling and hunting and all that kind of stuff on the snowmobiles when they're capable. But I've always asked. I've just never done it. I've never had a chance to do it. Never had a chance to do it. I'd love to do it. This is from Frank, who said, don't forget, unit, starting later on tonight, a possible 1 to 180 inches of snow could start at 7, 8, 9, 10, or 11. Maybe not stopping until Saturday morning, maybe before that, maybe after that, but prepare. Thank you very much. Oh, I love it. Love it. That one made me giggle. Lost my breath on that one. Bob says, I don't snowmobile. It's just too damn cold. Well, you got to dress right. I know that my buddies that do it, they have like electric clothing or battery powered clothing, and they stay warm. They say actually at times, because you're using so many muscles when you snowmobile, they actually sweat. So, I mean, I don't know, but they say you can sweat in those things. So if I can do it and sweat, then I'm all in. It's not like sitting on the ice waiting for a fish to come out of a hole. I'm not a big fan of ice fishing. I've done it a couple of times. Silky Dave says the Green Bay Packers cannot sustain this level of play because they're just not that damn good. I think we overestimated their talent at the beginning of the season. Joe Barry is awful, Matt LaFleur is soft, and Aaron Rodgers is arrogant. That combination alone will not allow us to go into the playoffs, and if we do by chance get there, we're not going to go far. Let's live in reality and stop wishing that this Packers team was better. Thank you very much. Speaking of the big bucket of cold water, which, you know what, you may not be, that's living in what we've seen this far as reality goes. So I'm not going to fault you for that. Wait, let's do this. We'll break, and when we come back, there's 2 good headlines Ben has. I don't know what they are. I haven't gotten into this yet. Ben's got a couple of headlines that are interesting. If we're going to fill some time here at the end of the program, we got some things to wrap up with, but Ben has got a couple of headlines he wants to express. Stay tuned. The Bill Michaels Show wraps it all up.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Ho, 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 I need a window.
Baby, it's cold outside.
So where do I go? Ho, ho.
Come on, Santa. Go to Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. Now is the time to replace your leaky windows and doors. You and Mrs. Claus can get your new windows while putting no money down, no payments, and no interest for up to 24 months. Unwrap this gift now, but pay for it 2 years later.
More jingle that stays in my pocket.
That's right, Santa. Plus, our elves install year-round and in as little as 1 day. Pella offers lines in luxurious wood, glass, and vinyl.
Make a solution.
That's the spirit, Santa.
Hella no, pay later.
Absolutely. Put no money down, no payments, and no interest for up to 24 months. But you have to hurry. Offer ends December 31st. Schedule your free consultation today at PellaWI.com.
Sure, license for details.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Now, in Green Bay, here's Mike Clemens.
The Packers have practice today installing the game plan for their trip to face the Dolphins. Wide receiver Sammy Watkins is now back with the Baltimore Ravens after he was waived by the Packers on Monday. After reviewing the game film, Packers safety Adrian Amos says the key to holding the Rams to just 156 yards total offense was Green Bay's defensive line and the linebackers.
I think our front did a great job. They had a great game. Like my front seven, they controlled it. They weren't able to run the ball. A couple plays here and there, but when the front do that job and dominate up there, then it makes the game a lot more fun for the back end.
Packers head coach Matt LaFleur.
LA has had a rash of injuries up front, so it was a favorable matchup, I would say, for our guys, and that's what you got to do. You got to win when you're expected to win, and I thought for the most part our guys were able to do that.
Rasul Douglas intercepted a Baker Mayfield pass, and instead of just running with it, he says he decided to lateral it to Adrian Amos, nearly fumbled it.
When he grabbed me and I kind of twisted me, I seen Smash and Rudy. So I was like, all right, if I could just grip the ball and throw it to one of them.
Smash and Rudy?
No, that's why I messed up. That was my first mistake. You know what I'm saying? That was my first mistake right there. And then when I went to go throw it, it slid. But I was already in the process, so as I was going down, I just underhand, and then I seen it hit the ground. I was like, damn, it's about to be like the Raiders and the Patriots. In my head, I like, damn.
That's Packers defensive back Rasul Douglas in Green Bay. I'm Mike Clemens on the
in the Big Ten. Maryland, the number 5 class. Northwestern, the number 6 class in the Big Ten. Just throwing it out there. National Recruiting Day. Bill Michaels Show, we continue on. Ben, you getting geeked? National Recruiting Day.
I'm having a fine day. The thing is, Wisconsin isn't up with all these schools because Luke Fickell got hired 3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Next year, today, it'll be a lot more interesting from the Badgers' perspective.
You would assume so. But you're still looking for big things out of Wisconsin for the upcoming season, correct?
Yeah, I'm looking.
And don't forget, this is recruiting. This is not the addition via portal.
No, but there is a lot of portal news drop. It's all happening at the same time.
Right.
So, it's really just whatever positive momentum Fickell can create, I'm thrilled with.
Mm-hmm.
And landing that quarterback this weekend was obviously one of those. But it's not as if this class is going to define him because he's just putting scraps together. But he's done a pretty impressive job. He flipped a 4-star from Cincinnati today.
That was the other thing. They had Cincinnati's new head coach, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he came out of Louisville.
Satterfield.
Thank you very much. They had him on, and they were touting the Cincinnati class, but a lot of those kids that are going there were Luke Fickell guys. And then just as they were doing that, they were announcing that one of the guys who was going to go to Cincinnati is decommitted and is going to go to Wisconsin instead. But Wisconsin basically listed with the 12th class in the Big Ten, not overall, the Big Ten. So, but that's again recruiting, and that's not necessarily portal guys. So you give, and does that also give you a sense as to where Wisconsin recruiting was, Ben?
Kind of, yes. It was not a very impressive class.
And the reason that Wisconsin, there was a need for a change?
Yeah, kind of. It was one of the many reasons. But also part of the reason it's so far down is because a bunch of kids decommitted after Paul Chris got fired.
Right.
So it's a small class.
So let's do this because you have got, by the way, this portion of the program brought to you by our friends at Kunis RV. Go to KUNES, Kunis RV, Wisconsin's fastest growing RV dealer. And still, if you're looking for a last minute gift idea for the camper or RV in your life, head into one of their showrooms all over the state and pick something up. That's Kunis, KUNES, KunisRV.com. So you got a couple of headlines we should be interested in?
I have audio. Now this is definitely sports related.
Okay.
It's college football related, and it kind of goes into religion as well.
Oh, geez.
This is Dabo Sweeney without context. Take a listen.
Thinking through it, and I mean, for me, we built this program on NIL. We really did, and it's probably different than what you're thinking, though. We built this program in God's name, image, and likeness.
Oh, jeez. Okay. I'm not going to knock him for his belief or what Clemson has, but is there more context to that, or is that just on what? It's kind of like when you're a religious person and you see something posted on Facebook that says, if you believe in God and you know, whatever, then please have enough intestinal fortitude to repost this. And I don't get into my religions. You know, I mean, I believe, I grew up Catholic, the whole thing. Okay. But I don't force that upon anybody. I don't stick it out there. I don't, you know, if I have a need to say something, I'll say something. If I don't, I don't. So first of all, it is impressive that Clemson has God as their recruiter. That's fantastic. I mean, how do you compete with that? You can't even bring Lombardi to recruit to your franchise because he can't trump God.
I don't think God would go to Clemson, though. I think he'd go to Notre Dame.
You would assume, but God was supposed to go to Notre Dame, and then he went into the transfer portal after Brian Kelly took the job. So he has been out on Notre Dame ever since.
It's just like, not to talk about his beliefs, it's a ridiculous thing to say. And Dabo's the king of saying things like
Yeah,
this.
I was going to say, when you're the king of ridiculous, you might as well just fire it off, you know?
It's so good.
By the way, I am currently watching Ryan Day, the head coach of Ohio State, at the podium speaking. And if his head, including his face and beard, are not taped off and painted by Earl Scheib, for those of you that are old enough to remember, I have no idea who is. That is a ridiculous look. Somebody along the way should go, you know what, Ryan? Go natural, dude, because the Ronco can of spray hair is not doing you any favors. Just throwing it out there.
They've lost like 4 commits today, by the way.
Well, it's because of that ugly hair. When you got to bring people in to wax your face, it's not a good thing. So, okay, let's go to headline number 2. We'll get away from Dabo Swinney and his and God's on the recruiting trail for Clemson.
Now, it's along similar lines if we're talking about deities and those that exist higher than the human realm. Nick Foles is starting for the Colts on Monday.
Oh, crap. So Jeff Saturday, after saying he needed that vet, you know, Matt Ryan's the guy. Got to have him. In the first half of that game against the Vikings, he's like, Ryan, you the man. Way to go. And then suddenly he went from being Ryan Day to man to, you got to get away from me, dude. You had a 33-point lead and you got waxed. You can't do anything in the second half of a game. You have no leadership capability. You got to go. So that's where they're at now. Now it's Nick Foles. Nick Foles is charging back in literally on the white charger with the Colts.
All I'm going to say is don't be surprised if they win out, make the playoffs, and win the Super Bowl.
All right. You called it. You called your shot. Well, we're not going to believe a word of it, but you called your shot. There you go.
No, it's lesson 1 in sports radios. If you think something could happen, don't say it will. Say don't be surprised if.
Right.
So if it doesn't happen, then you're not liable.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say it right now. Ben Kenny is the one that said, don't be surprised if. And then he has the Colts going to and winning the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. So when it doesn't happen, just know where to go. You heard it on this program, but you didn't hear it from me. It's the best way to put it. So, oh my God. What a day. What a day. NIL, the first NIL. Let me tell you about the man who was involved in the NIL. Let me ask you this, though. How does the NIL, how does that relate to God? I would assume God's a football fan, right? They got Lombardi in heaven. He probably taught him the X's and O's. But, man, I don't know. Dabo Swinney giving us a little philosophical update on the way out. Hey, coming up tonight, we're going to be at DJ's Goalpost. Let the snow fly, because we're going to be hanging out tonight. A couple of Bud Lights tilted back. Going to be talking some more football this evening. It's the Bill Michaels Huddle. It's all brought to you by our friends at Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the Bill Michaels Sports Talk Network. That'll do it for us. Batten down the hatches. It's a great white death. It's going to throw you to the ground, roll around with you. It's not like a good date. It's a bad date. Like that date you wined and dined. You took her all over the place. The next thing you know, she kissed you and you realized, oh my God, it's a dude. That's what kind it is. It's just a bad day. It's coming. But that's okay. We're all going to spend the night together. Until we talk again.